cultivating a tree of life in the world of wizards. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Water of Wood Spirits. 3 wood magic techniques completed. Ronan looked at the formula and saw that the main ingredient was the gallbladder of a second level wood snake monster, while the other ingredients were less precious herbs and flowers. Moreover, when refining the wood essence water, a spell was needed. When refining the medicine, one had to pay attention to the temperature and the state of the medicine while chanting the spell, which immediately made the difficulty of refining the medicine rise sharply. However, this was naturally nothing to Ronan. Ronan took another look at the formula, wrote it down, and then placed the parchment with the formula written on it on the candle flame. Soon, the parchment burned to ashes. It was now late, and the curfew bell of Triumph City was about to ring. Ronan planned to go to the monster forest again tomorrow to hunt the second level wood snake monster. The next day, Ronan went out early. After having a hearty breakfast in a restaurant, he went out of the city. He chose a deserted place and drank a bottle of primary transformation potion. This time, he only changed his appearance and height, instead of making a big change like yesterday. After all, he was going to hunt monsters now, which required fighting and big movements. He was not used to being the same as yesterday. After his appearance and height were fixed, Ronan used the magnetic torrent and his speed suddenly increased, running in the alley. Not long after, he left the lower city and arrived outside the Triumph City. He increased the magnetic torrent and rushed towards the Gold Forest. He had read a book of monsters at the Kingdom Wizard Academy. He knew that there was a second level lower level demon snake called Oak Python in the Gold Forest. On weekdays, it could disguise itself as an oak tree, which was very confusing. But for him with a strong spiritual sense, it was not confusing at all. Generally speaking, most of the monsters on the periphery of the monster forest were first level monsters. If you want to hunt second level monsters, you have to go a little deeper. After Ronan rushed in, his spiritual sense swept around. Suddenly, he saw a first level bear monster, which slowly walked under a tree. Then, the tree suddenly bent. A huge snake head stretched out from the treetops, opened its bloody mouth, and swallowed the first level bear monster in one go. The bear monster just wailed and struggled for a few times, then completely stopped moving and was silent. Then, the tree straightened up again, and returned to its previous appearance. The next moment, a green light flew over, and twisted the tree. Suddenly, the tree broke into 2 parts. After breaking, the 2 parts of the tree immediately bent. A closer look revealed that they were 2 parts of the snake body. The cross-section was bloody and blood gushed out like a fountain. Ronan scanned it with his spiritual sense and knew where the snake gall was. He immediately condensed a wizard's hand with 5 sharp claws and grabbed the flesh of the oak python. He immediately grabbed out a green snake gall. Ronan took out a large glass jar filled with liquid medicine from the storage magic device. He opened the lid of the jar and threw the snake gall in with a plop. Afterwards, after collecting the scales of the oak python and other valuable materials, he left this place. Ronan continued to go deeper. Along the way, his spiritual sense sensed several teams hunting monsters. Ronan didn't want to cause trouble, so he avoided them. Soon, after more than half a day, he collected more than 30 snake gallbladders. After wandering for more than an hour, he couldn't find an oak python, so he went back. He didn't know whether the oak pythons in this forest had been killed by him. I'm afraid that, if I want to hunt this monster again in the future, I will have to change another monster forest. Ronan returned to Triumph City and went to Tom's medicine shop in the lower city. After buying other medicinal materials for refining wood essence water, he returned to the bungalow and began to refine wood essence water. Wood essence water, entry 35%. After half an hour, Ronan refined the first batch of wood essence water. The refined wood essence water contains a crystal green color. Waves of light green smoke rose from the crucible containing the wood essence water. Ronan poured the wood essence water into a medicine bottle and continued to refine it, working on his proficiency. 3 days later, wood essence water, 2% mastery. Ronan finally mastered the wood essence water. He poured a portion of the refined wood essence water on the mother tree of his natal immortal tree. While refining the wood essence water, he chanted a spell. With the spell, energy particles gathered towards the wood essence water. He immediately felt that the wood essence water potion had changed, and it seemed to contain a strong life magic. The wood essence water was poured into the soil at the root of the mother tree of his natal immortal tree and seeped down. Soon, it was absorbed by the roots. Ronan immediately felt that a vigorous vitality was absorbed into the roots of the tree. Then, like a ball of fire, it ignited the vitality of the roots. The efficacy of the master level wood essence water will soon catch up with the perfect green liquid of growth. Ronan carefully felt the vitality and estimated in his heart. According to the formula, wood essence water, like green liquid of growth, also needs to be used in a fixed amount. Each plant cannot be overwatered, otherwise it will cause damage to the plant. After watering the mother tree of the life tree, Ronan went to refine wood essence water to water other spiritual plants. 10 days later, the Gult magic beast forest outside the Triumph City, a second level inferior magic wolf was pouncing on Ronan. Ronan just raised his hand. Suddenly, vines as thick as wrists drilled out of the soil, entangled with each other, and trapped the magic wolf in an instant. Then, Ronan pinched his hand. The vines tightened, a miserable howl was heard, and bloody blood flowed out from the vines. Entanglement. Perfect. After unremitting practice, his entangling technique has reached perfection. Its power was enough to kill a second level low-level magic beast. In addition to the entanglement technique, he also mastered the wood armor technique and the healing technique. He poured the ancient wood's longevity magic power into the witchcraft model of the wood armor technique. Suddenly, energy particles gathered, and a thick layer of wood armor wrapped it. From the outside, he looked like a tree man more than 2 meters tall. Then, he had an idea, and compressed the wood armor. His height returned to the size of an ordinary person, and the compressed wood armor became tougher and thicker. He covered his body with the wood armor, and punched a tree trunk. With a click, the trunk fell immediately. He scanned with his spiritual sense, and saw that there was no one around, so he took out a first level medium grade talisman, the flame talisman, from the storage magic tool. This flame talisman was mastered by him to the master level. After injecting magic power into the flame talisman, he threw it at himself. Suddenly, a flame hit his chest. Ronan did not block, but directly met the blow with his chest. He only felt a burst of heat in his chest. The flames burned on the wooden armor on his chest, and after burning for a while, they went out. However, it did not burn through the wooden armor on his chest, but only left a dark shallow pit. And because of the ancient wood's longevity magic power, this dark shallow pit was self-repairing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 102 with a Druid. After Ronan had mastered the 3 magic arts taught by Awen, he decided to learn more from her. So, the next day, he went to Awen's bungalow, and said he wanted to learn new magic arts. Awen wanted to see how Ronan had learned the 3 basic wood-based combat magic arts, so she went to the Gult forest of monsters outside the Triumph City with Ronan. Ronan saw the forest, and wanted to subconsciously cast the entanglement spell on a tree. But he immediately thought that Awen was a traditional druid, and would definitely not destroy trees. Unlike Ronan, Awen did not have a greenwood spirit with wood attributes. If she destroyed the trees, the heart of nature would most likely disappear from her body. Attack me. Awen stood in the open space in the forest and said, "Okay." After Ronan responded, he cast the entanglement spell and entangled Awen. However, he controlled the output of mana, and did not cast the perfect level of entanglement, but the mastery level of entanglement. In fact, most wizards do not practice witchcraft to the master level when they practice witchcraft. After all, for most people, the gap between the master level and the master level is an insurmountable watershed. If many people only practice one witchcraft, they may have to practice for a long time before they can get the master level trick. With this energy, it is better to practice more advanced witchcraft. Therefore, as long as he shows the witchcraft strength of the master level, Awen will teach him more advanced witchcraft. After Ronan performed the entanglement technique, vines as big as 3 fingers burst out from the soil and entangled towards Awen's curvy body. Awen did not move. A light green light shone around her. A wood-type energy particle shield immediately covered Awen. Ronan's vines entangled it. Awen's wood-type energy particle shield was rippled. She felt the strength of the vines and said, "You have indeed mastered the entanglement technique, but what about the wood armor technique? Perform the wood armor technique." Ronan immediately performed the wood armor technique. A layer of wood armor appeared on his right hand. Then, he had an idea, and the wood armor extended into a long and sharp wooden sword. He used the wooden sword to swing at Awen's wood energy particle shield. A large ripple appeared on the shield. The progress of the wood armor technique depends on the hardness of the condensed wood armor. At this time, Ronan swung the sword, but the wooden sword did not break. Awen felt the strength of Ronan's sword swing and estimated the hardness of the wooden sword. Soon, she had the answer in her heart. The wood armor technique is almost at the top. Ronan listened and thought to himself that it seemed that Awen's wood armor technique should only be practiced to this level. Therefore, he could not see what the wood armor technique would be like if it was practiced further. However, his perfect wood armor technique could withstand fire attacks. After testing Ronan's wood armor, Awen put away the wood energy particle shield. "Try the healing spell," she said while chanting slowly. Suddenly, a wind appeared in the forest and surrounded her. It blew up her green dress slightly. Her tight and smooth thighs were exposed. Along with the wind, came a green light. Soon, the green light turned into a humanoid creature half a meter in size. "This is a wood spirit," Awen said. "It is also called the will of the forest. Only wizards with a natural heart can condense it. Now, I will let it take us to some sick or nearly withered trees," Awen said, and chanted a spell. Ronan didn't understand the language of this spell at all, but he still used Hangmeng to memorize every pronunciation of the spell. After chanting the spell, the green light figure twisted its body and flew to the side. Awen cast a fast walk spell on herself and Ronan, and followed the wood spirit. Not long after, they saw a purple red light flashing in front of them. Ronan's eyes were sharp, and he saw that it was a man with black hair, about 30 years old, holding a wand that looked like a dead tree. When he tapped the wand, a purple red light burst out from the top of the wand. After the light hit a tree, the tree immediately withered and turned black, and completely died. "It's the withered druid," Awen said immediately when she saw this person. Then, she cast a stronger fast walk spell on herself, and ran towards the person he called withered druid. Ronan swept his consciousness and immediately knew that this person was a third level wizard apprentice. "Please stop destroying the tree." When the person called withered druid wanted to release the light again, Awen stopped him. The man looked at Awen, frowned, and said, "Traditional druid?" Then, he still pointed the magic wand and released a purple red light, which flew through the air and headed towards a tree trunk. After the light hit the trunk, the entire tree immediately withered and turned black. The leaves of the entire crown suddenly fell off. "You." Awen frowned suddenly. "Haha." The man laughed. "You should be a traditional druid who has obtained the heart of nature, right? I hate to see trees being destroyed. But what can you do to me? This forest is not your creation. I can destroy it if I want. Besides, you can't do anything to me. If you do something to me, you will violate the laws of the Kingdom of Valant. I remember what you look like, and can sue you at the Wizard Council. Go away. Don't stop me from practicing witchcraft." Awen gradually calmed down. After listening to what this person said, she also smiled slightly. More than 50 years ago, the withered druid was expelled from the druid school and became a wild wizard. And if a wild wizard wants to become a legal registered wizard, he must register with the Wizard Council and pay a registration fee every year. Many wild wizard apprentices and wizards don't want to pay this money and will not register. I don't think you will register. As a wild wizard, you have violated the law. As a registered wizard in the kingdom, I have the obligation to bring you to the Wizard Council. The withered druid heard this without any panic on his face. He just smiled and said, "I'm a registered wizard. I have a badge of proof from the Wizard Council." Awen still kept smiling. "Then take it out and show it to me." The withered druid shook his head, as if mocking Awen, and slightly concentrated, as if taking out the badge of proof from the Wizard Council from the storage magic device. Suddenly, his eyes suddenly became sharp, and he pointed the wand in his hand. A purple red light burst out from the top of the wand, and went towards Awen. Chapter 103 Withering Witchcraft. Awen seemed to have been prepared for a long time, and the wood element energy particle shield immediately covered her whole body. The purple and red light shot onto Awen's shield. Suddenly, the energy particle shield was corroded by the purple red light in an instant, leaving a big hole. This was the first time Awen encountered the Withering Druid, and now she knew that the Withering Druid's witchcraft had a great restraint on her. The wood element energy particle shield had almost no blocking effect on the Withering witchcraft, so she could only kick her feet hard to avoid the purple red light. After dodging, she waved her right hand forward. A light green light flashed in the air, and green vines grew in the air, quickly entangled into a sharp spear, and threw it towards the Withering Druid. Seeing this, the Withering Druid smiled grimly, and released another purple red light. After the light hit Awen's green wooden spear, the green vines on the wooden spear immediately withered and blackened. The whole wooden spear softened in the air. Seeing this scene, Pana, the withered druid, was refreshed. Although he had been practicing the witchcraft of the withered druid, he had never fought with the traditional druid. Today, he realized how much the withered witchcraft he learned restrained the traditional druid. From Awen's energy fluctuations, he also saw that Awen was a third-level wizard apprentice, and her magic power was higher than his. Otherwise, she would not be able to deal with him through the wood witchcraft that was restrained by him. This bitch must have a rich collection, Pana thought. As a wild wizard apprentice, he was short of money on weekdays. He secretly violated the laws of the kingdom and killed people more than once or twice. In this forest, except for a wizard apprentice with very low energy fluctuations, there was no one else, which immediately made him want to kill people and steal treasures. Awen saw that Pana's withered witchcraft restrained herself, so she did not confront him head on. After casting a fast walk spell on himself, his speed increased immediately. In a way of fighting, he circled around Pana and threw sharp wooden spears at Pana. At the same time, Awen also cast the entanglement spell to trap Pana. But Pana chanted a spell, and a layer of purple red light appeared around him, withering all the vines that emerged from the ground. When Awen's speed increased, Pana also cast a fast walk spell on himself, and his speed also increased. The two of them fought in the woods. Awen's wooden spear was either dodged by Pana or hit by the purple red light he released and withered. Because of Awen's quick displacement, Pana's attack also did not hit her. Suddenly, Pana seemed to remember something, and her eyes drifted towards Ronan, and she immediately had the idea of killing the companion of the female druid and making him exhausted. Sensing Pana's gaze, Awen knew what Pana was going to do. After dodging a purple red light, she immediately waved her hand towards Ronan and cast the fast walk spell on him. Quick, go back and find the people from the Wizard Council, Awen said to Ronan. Ronan immediately turned around and ran away, raising dust, his figure getting smaller and smaller. Want to leave? Pana also ran over, raised his wand, and was about to shoot a purple red light at Ronan. However, Awen was like a nimble cheetah, turning several times in the open space in the forest. From different angles, she threw 5 green spears at Pana in succession, completely blocking Pana's way. In order to deal with the spears, Pana could only let Ronan go, release the light, and wither the 2 green spears. As a result, there was no threat in the direction where the 2 green spears were shot. Pana flew in this direction and dodged the other 3 green spears. Then, the magic wand tapped in the air, and several purple red lights broke through the air. Awen was about to catch up, but she saw the purple red light coming towards her, so she could only dodge to the side. This gave Pana time to escape. He knew that he couldn't kill the female druid for the time being, and the people from the Wizard Council would come again later, so he could only run away. Pana ran at full speed and soon disappeared into the depths of the woods. Although Awen was unwilling, she thought that she couldn't catch up, so she had to stop and use the druid healing magic to heal the trees that were hit by the purple red light. However, the magic power of the withered druid restrained her magic. When she cast the druid healing magic, she felt that the recovery of the trees was much slower than usual. Pana used fast walk and flew for a while. When he turned around, he saw that Awen didn't catch up, so he slowed down a little. He thought that the people from the Wizard Council might not come so quickly. Then, he could go back, sneak attack the female druid, and then take away her magic storage device. Thinking of this, Pana turned back. At the same time, he used his magic wand. Several thumb-sized vines, emitting a faint blue light, wrapped around a tree. Soon, the tree withered, and the physical strength and magic power he had just consumed were recovering. Just as he was rushing forward, he suddenly saw a person walking out of the woods. Looking closely, it was the wizard apprentice who had just followed the female druid. He thought Ronan had gone to Triumph City to find the wizard council, but he never thought he would appear here. For a moment, he did not guess why Ronan appeared here. He stretched out his magic wand and wanted to release a purple-red light. However, under his feet, a vine as thick as his wrist suddenly broke out of the ground and wrapped around his legs. He could only adjust the target of his attack and hit the purple-red light on the vine. When he saw the vines withering due to his withering light, he suddenly realized that the energy fluctuations emitted by the wizard apprentice could not release vines of this degree. Could it be that this person has a magic weapon that amplifies magic power or conceals energy fluctuations? Both of these are what he needs most. When Parna looked forward again, he saw Ronan soaring into the air and flying towards him at a high speed. His eyes widened, and he immediately shot several withering lights at Ronan. However, Ronan had just shot himself a few golden armor talismans. After the withering light hit him, he saw only a few pieces of golden armor appearing on his body, blocking the withering light. While Parna was surprised, Ronan had already cast the magnetic torrent and came in front of Parna. Just as Parna aimed at Ronan and was about to release the withering light, Ronan had already raised his fist and punched Parna on the top of his head, using the high speed of the Earth's magnetic field. Parna only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and then his eyes went black, and he lost consciousness. Chapter 104 The Energy-Absorbing Magic Vine and the Withering Light. After Ronan knocked Parna unconscious, he immediately touched Parna's crown with one hand and held the wand that was about to fall with the other. With a thought in his mind, he took Parna to the world of immortal cultivation. In the mansion of the Welly Kingdom, Ronan and Parna appeared. Immediately, Ronan put the wand into the storage magic tool, and then with a thought in his mind, he returned to the wizard world. He used several cleaning talismans to remove the traces. After completely removing the traces, he cast the magnetic torrent and returned to Triumph City very quickly. He went straight to the middle city and asked Immortal to send him an anonymous letter to the base of the Wizard Council. The letter said that he saw a wild third-level wizard apprentice in the Gold Forest. After all, Arwen asked him to come back to report the news, so he couldn't not do it, which would arouse suspicion. After sending the anonymous letter, Ronan released his spiritual sense 300 meters away from the base of the Wizard Council, sensing what was happening in the base of the Wizard Council. Most of the wizards in the Central City Wizard Council stronghold are third-level wizard apprentices. There are only one or two first-level formal wizards among them. Second-level formal wizards and above are the top figures in the kingdom. They will not be in the Wizard Council stronghold, but in the Wizard Council headquarters in the upper city. There are many wild first-level wizard apprentices in the kingdom. After all, some people with wizard qualifications always find meditation methods to practice by themselves. And many of them cannot practice, so they have always been first-level wizard apprentices. And the wild third-level wizard apprentices already have strong power. If he is a black wizard, he is enough to cause chaos. After reading the anonymous letter, the people in the Wizard Council stronghold could not tell the truth from the false for a while, so they sent out two third-level wizard apprentices to investigate. Ronan sensed that the two third-level wizard apprentices both cast acceleration magic and flew towards the direction of the Central City Gate. He left the vicinity of the Wizard Council stronghold and returned to the bungalow. With a thought in his mind, he traveled to the world of cultivation. In the world of immortal cultivation, in the mansion of the Welly Kingdom, Parna was still in a coma. His head was hit by Ronan's punch, and blood was accumulated. It was difficult to wake up for a while. Ronan condensed the wizard's hand and searched Parna's body carefully. He found a storage magic device on Parna's body, a space skin bag. When his spirit probed into it, he felt a space of about 1 cubic meter inside. It was basically the same as the other wizard apprentices knocked down by Ronan. There were two things in the storage magic device, a book and a medicine bottle. Ronan took out 2 books. One of them recorded the meditation method, called Decay Meditation Method. The magic power cultivated has a bit of withered breath, which consumes less for the withered witchcraft. The other one is a notebook. When he opened it, He recorded the various insights of this withered wizard on the withered witchcraft. Among them, it includes the insights of the decay meditation method and several witchcrafts. Among these witchcrafts, Ronan jumped to the page and saw that there were energy absorbing magic vine, withered light, wizard's eye, and fast walking. Ronan was very interested in energy absorbing magic vine and withered light. Energy absorbing magic vine is a first level superior witchcraft, which is a promotion branch of the first level medium witchcraft entanglement. From the notebook, it can be seen that if you practice entanglement and master energy absorbing magic vine, the speed will be faster. Energy absorbing magic vine is to use vines to absorb the energy of objects so as to restore physical strength and magic power. This witchcraft can be released on any object, but absorbing the power of plants can restore physical strength and magic power the fastest. Objects entangled by energy absorbing magic vine will show different degrees of corruption. For example, trees will wither and people will die. Ronan flipped through the notebook and quickly wrote down all the spells of energy absorbing magic vine and the witchcraft model deduction formula. In addition, with the help of Han Meng, a witchcraft model was constructed in a 3-dimensional coordinate system. Once he has mastered this magic, he can build a magic model in his mind. Then, Ronan flipped through the notebook and looked at the content of the magic withered light. This magic is also a first level superior magic. That is, the purple red light release by Pana, which is considered a common combat magic for the 3rd level wizard apprentice of the withered druid. This magic has a stronger corrupting power than the energy absorbing magic vine. Moreover, the loss of magic power is also more than that of the energy absorbing magic vine. Compared with the energy absorbing magic vine, the withered light is a pure attack magic. And the energy absorbing magic vine, compared with the withered light, is more like a recovery magic. After memorizing the spell of the withered light and the magic model formula, Ronan put the notebook back into the storage magic device. He pried open a piece of floor, used the wizard's hand, carried Pana to the basement, and locked him up with shackles. Then, he used the healing spell to wake him up. When Pana woke up and saw Ronan, he was shocked, and subconsciously cast the withering light. He had been in the wizard world for a long time, and had always used energy particles to attack. However, after he injected magic power into the withering light witchcraft model, he found that there were very few energy particles around. When he released the witchcraft, a purple red light flashed slightly in the air and then disappeared. Ronan curled his lips slightly, chanted a spell, and cast the energy absorbing magic vine on Pana. The ancient wood longevity magic power in his dantian was consumed, and a little blue light lit up on his fingertips. Then, 3 magic vines as thin as little fingers grew out of the light, and entangled Pana's arm. Ronan immediately felt that the life energy, like a stream, flowed into the energy absorbing magic vine. The skin on Pana's hand gradually wrinkled and blackened. He screamed. Next, Ronan used the 2 magics of energy absorbing magic vines and withered light to force Pana to tell all the information. It turned out that this person was also a nobleman like him. However, his status in the aristocratic circle was higher than his. There was a 2nd level wizard apprentice in his family, and his family ranked top in a province. Pana met a withered druid in his territory. The 2 of them had a lot in common, and then they came to Triumph City together. Pana spent a lot of money and energy to pay for the food, drink, and entertainment of the withered druid, and then learned this withered witchcraft. Later, the withered druid disappeared, so he practiced in Triumph City by himself, borrowing the rich resources of Triumph City. After practicing for 12.5 years, he became a 3rd level wizard apprentice. The withered wood wand in his hand was the wand of his cheap teacher. Because his cheap teacher had long disappeared, he saw this wand on the black market and bought it. He felt that his cheap teacher should have killed people for treasures. This magical weapon, which his cheap teacher called the withered magic wand, could only amplify withering magic, and was useless to wizards who did not practice this art. Therefore, the person who stole the treasure should have sold it, and then circulated it on the black market. Chapter 105 Witchcraft, Magic Plant Carnival. After Ronan finished asking the question, Pana's hands and feet were already completely dry and black. His whole face was already full of tears and snot, and his face was covered with sweat. From Pana's mouth, Ronan knew that withering magic restrained with magic. He wanted to see how withering magic restrained his own magic, so he cast a healing spell to heal Parna's withered hands and feet. The ancient wood's longevity magic power turned into the magic of healing magic, wrapping Parna's arms and feet. The dry black on his hands and feet gradually dissipated. The wrinkled skin also gradually regained its elasticity. It seems that the damage caused by this withering magic can still be reversed by my healing magic, and the speed is not slow. Ronan thought, although withering magic restrains wood magic, only wood magic is strong enough, and withering magic can hardly suppress it. Witchcraft will restrain each other. There is no perfect witchcraft. As long as it is strong enough, nothing can restrain it. Ronan thought. After he healed Parna's arms and legs to 80%, he left him to recover on his own. Then, he left the basement, and with a thought, he traveled back to the wizard world. The next day, Ronan went to Awen's bungalow early in the morning to find Awen to continue practicing wood witchcraft. Yesterday, he was supposed to let Awen teach him wood witchcraft, but was interrupted by the sudden appearance of the withering druid. After arriving at Awen's bungalow, he saw that Awen, who was supposed to sleep until late, had left the house early. After seeing Ronan, Awen asked Ronan to go with her to the Guld Forest to continue healing the trees destroyed by Parna's withering light. Yesterday, the withered druid kept destroying nature in front of me, causing my heart of nature to weaken. Awen cast a fast walk spell on herself and Ronan, and said as she walked, "Yes, me too." Ronan listened and said, in fact, the increase in his heart of nature yesterday did not weaken. He felt that this was because he was a greenwood spirit body, which was nature itself. The heart of nature would never abandon him no matter what. Moreover, as the age of his life tree increased, his greenwood spirit body was transitioning to Yamuda Makaya. The increase in the heart of nature for him was getting bigger and bigger. With the blessing of fast walk, Awen and Ronan ran very fast. After entering the Guld Forest, because of the blessing of the heart of nature, the magic power of fast walk cast by Awen was stronger. The two ran like the wind in the woods. Soon, the two arrived at the place where Awen and Parna fought yesterday. Most of the trees in this forest were dry and black. Yesterday, I treated these trees and saved most of them. I didn't let them die completely. My nature heart has also recovered a lot, Awen said, and cast a healing spell on the trees. Ronan saw that Awen's healing spell was only at the peak of the master level and had not yet touched the edge of the master level. If he cast it with all his strength, the healing effect would be better than Awen's. He thought, controlling the output of magic power and casting a master level healing spell. Moreover, the magic power fluctuation was controlled at the level of a first level wizard apprentice. Awen saw Ronan's healing skills and nodded. You have mastered healing skills very well. I didn't expect that. Although your wizard qualifications are poor, you have a good talent for learning wizardry. I heard from my elders that the more advanced a wizard is in training, the less important the wizard qualifications are, and the wizard learning talent is the most important. However, the Kingdom of Valant only trains war machines, and they attach great importance to wizard qualifications. When I was still in the south, I heard that the high-level formal wizards in various fields of the Kingdom Wizard Academy have already planned the paths of their fields for the apprentices in the academy. These apprentices with good wizard qualifications, as long as they practice according to the path, can be promoted to formal wizards at a very fast speed, and thus become useful combat forces for the Kingdom of Valant. Only a few wizard apprentices with extremely high wizard learning talents will be discovered by high-level formal wizards in the Kingdom Wizard Academy, and then reported to the royal family for training. The high-level formal wizards in various fields of the Kingdom Wizard Academy used to be this kind of wizard apprentices. Ronan accompanied Awen to treat the trees for 3 days, and finally cured all the trees in the forest that were not dead. During this period, Awen also told Ronan a lot of knowledge about wood magic. For example, Ronan knew that according to the Druid school's distinction between wood magic, it is mainly divided into growth and withering, which corresponds to the 2 stages of plant growth. Traditional Druids, even most Druids, only practice growth wood magic. Like entanglement, wood armor and healing, they all belong to growth wood magic. They only practice growth wood magic because the traditional concept passed down by the Druids makes them feel that destroying nature is a sinful act, and practicing withering magic is simply a great sin. Therefore, withering Druids are not tolerated by the Druid school. Moreover, withering druids are in the gray area between white wizards and black wizards. After all, witchcraft-like energy-absorbing magic vines can not only absorb the vitality of trees, but also absorb the vitality of living people. If a withering wizard absorbs the vitality of living people to restore himself, he is a black wizard. After learning the withering magic, the heart of nature will disappear immediately. Awen said, if a person from the druid school cannot be blessed in the woods, it means that he does not have the heart of nature. This kind of druid is likely to have practiced withering magic, or will transform into a withering druid. Ronan believes that withering and death are also a kind of nature. He feels that he is a greenwood spirit, which is equivalent to a tree. After learning the withering magic, the heart of nature has not diminished, because of this reason. After the two of them healed the trees, Awen saw that Ronan had mastered the 3 major combat magics well, so she wanted to teach Ronan another magic. This magic is the most difficult to master in the first level wood-based combat magic of the druid school. It is called Magic Plant Carnival. Awen said, once you have mastered it, the magic plants nearby can all help you in battle, which is equivalent to your clone. You can use the magic plants to release the magic you know. As she spoke, Awen cast the fast walk magic on herself and Ronan, and took Ronan deeper into the forest, where they found a magic plant forest. These magic plants are called black water trees. The trunks are dark brown, and can be used as amplification wands for water-based magic. Awen chanted a spell, and the magic plants in this magic plant forest seemed to suddenly come alive. One by one, the black water trees pressed towards Awen and Ronan. Several branches of the black water trees grew wildly, and the ends of the branches suddenly became sharp like spears. Chapter 106 Remote Control of the Innate Longevity Tree. The branches of the black water tree, which had become as sharp as spears, were inserted into the ground, stirring up dust. As Awen cast a spell, she said, this is how I use the magic plant to cast my magic, the spear of the edge tree. Because the growth of the magic plant absorbs energy particles, it is equivalent to a magic device, so we also conduct magic power to it, and cast a spell. As she said this, Awen waved her hand, and put away the magic power. Suddenly, the black water trees that were black and fierce returned to their original state. Awen said, although this witchcraft is a first level superior witchcraft, it consumes a lot of magic power and mental energy. As a first level wizard apprentice, you may cast at most 3 witchcraft with the help of magic plants. So, if you really fight with someone, you must watch the opportunity and cast the magic plant carnival when the enemy is not prepared, so as to subdue the enemy with one blow. Otherwise, when your magic power and mental energy are consumed too much, you will fall into a passive position. Ronan nodded after listening. Then, Awen taught Ronan the spell and witchcraft model formula of magic plant carnival. After returning to the bungalow, Ronan couldn't wait to go to the botanical garden to try the magic plant carnival. He chanted the spell of magic plant carnival. A ethereal spell like a ballad sounded in the botanical garden. In an instant, he felt invisible passages formed in the air. At the 2 ends of the passage were him and the magic plants, including the natal immortal tree. This channel can transmit his magic power and mental power. As long as he has a thought in his mind, he can cast witchcraft through the magic plant. He immediately injected the magic power of the ancient wood into the witchcraft model of entanglement. At this time, part of his magic power was used to cast magic plant carnival and part was used to cast entanglement. It is no wonder that the magic plant carnival consumes a lot of magic, because when it is cast, it is equivalent to casting multiple witchcraft at the same time. With the output of magic power, under the control of his mind, the branches of the natal immortal tree and the branches of other magic plants have extended and entangled in the air. After casting the wood armor technique, each magic plant was covered with a layer of tough wood armor. Suddenly, Ronan had an idea in his mind. I wonder if I can cast the magic plant carnival remotely and then control the natal immortal tree. The natal immortal tree is different from other magic plants. Under the effect of the ancient wood immortal art, the natal immortal tree has a mysterious connection with him all the time. For other magic plants, the magic plant carnival can only work if it is within a certain range. But the life tree is not necessarily the same. Thinking of this, Ronan wondered if he could use the magic plant carnival to control the life tree if he was separated from the wizard world in the immortal world. After all, according to past experience, the life tree is equivalent to a part of his body. Even if separated by two worlds, the spiritual energy absorbed and refined by the life tree can still be fed back into his body. Then, Ronan's heart moved, and he traveled to the Welly State Mansion in the immortal world. Next, he chanted the spell of magic plant carnival. The life tree in the wizard world shared his spiritual consciousness with him. He could feel the botanical garden and everything within a radius of more than 600 meters. Just after he cast the magic plant carnival, he sensed that a witchcraft connection had been established between himself and the life tree. He injected the ancient wood immortality magic power into the witchcraft model of entanglement. Suddenly, the life tree in the wizard world became active. Several branches suddenly extended, bent, and entangled in the air. It really works. Then, he injected his magic power into the witchcraft model of wood armor. In an instant, wooden armors grew on the mother tree of the natal longevity tree. At the end of each branch, the wooden armors extended into sharp wooden swords. Under his control, they stabbed forward and turned into a wooden sword shadow. After trying the witchcraft for a while, Ronan returned to the wizard world. 3 days passed. Ronan practiced and promoted the growth of spiritual plants in the bungalow every day as usual. On this day, he was practicing the green lotus and white lotus art when he heard a knock on the door. He immediately stopped the art, left the botanical garden, and closed the door. After opening the door of the bungalow, he saw a man in his 20s holding a roll of parchment in his hand. "Sir, your letter." The man handed the letter in his hand to Ronan. Ronan saw the wax seal of the Lawrence family emblem on the parchment and knew that it was a letter sent from home. After receiving the letter, he closed the door, tore off the wax seal, and looked at the parchment. In the parchment, it was written that his father asked him if he could write a letter to send back the method of drawing or obtaining the magic pattern that restrained the undead creatures. At the end of the letter, it was also specified that it was Count Fleming who wanted it. After reading the letter, Ronan knew that this was the letter that Count Fleming sent someone to ask his father to write. He thought about it for a while and decided to ignore it. After all, there was no threat in the letter that, if the magic pattern was not written back, the family would suffer. He could ignore the letter for the time being and use the word delay. When the Fleming family threatened him with the family in the future, he would make plans. I reported the Fleming family. Why didn't the royal family take action? Ronan thought. However, the intricacies between the 7 major families, his level was too low, and the information he could obtain was too little. The reasons were not what he could think of, so he simply didn't think about it. The most important thing now was to improve his strength. Immediately, he returned to the botanical garden and continued to practice the green lotus and white lotus. As he breathed in and out, the spiritual energy of the nearby heaven and earth gathered towards him. It flowed through his pores and washed through his skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. He felt that the vitality contained in his body was growing stronger and stronger. This vitality should be my physical body's recovery ability. As long as I'm injured, this vitality will immediately take effect and repair my injuries. Ronan thought while practicing. He used his spiritual consciousness to scan his body. Compared with before, his muscles were tighter and stronger. He called up Han Meng and adjusted his own values. Strength 48 green lotus and white lotus, 11th level 32%. The strength is about to exceed that of the patrol guards in the upper city. After getting the data, Ronan thought, the patrol guards in the upper city have a strength value of about 50 at most, and these guards are already ranked at the top among the knights of the kingdom. In the kingdom of Valant, the pinnacle of mortal knights is the Golden Knight. Most of the patrol guards in the middle city are Golden Knights. Ronan has analyzed their values, and the highest is around 40. If you want to go further in knighthood, you must undergo witchcraft transformation. The patrol guards in the upper city have undergone witchcraft transformation. The top knights in the kingdom of Valant are all those who have successfully transformed through witchcraft. Most of them serve in the royal family and serve as guards for Augustus V. Chapter 107. Eat the foundation building pills as candy beans. Ronan's training is all in preparation for building the foundation. There are 3 levels of foundation building: the physical body, the spirit, and the mana. For the physical body, he has the green lotus and white lotus art, as well as the energy particle amplification technique from the wizard world. Now, he has only cultivated the green lotus and white lotus art, which has a total of 20 levels, to the 12th level, and the physical body can be improved a lot. As for the mental level, he has the Shenyanju. This is a book of puppetry that he found in the market after the Yu family of the Huan's insect was destroyed. It is not a problem to practice the Shenyanju and improve the spirit. As for the mana level, he only needs to practice the ancient wood longevity art to accumulate mana. Moreover, the life tree is also constantly accumulating mana for him. In this way, his physical body, spirit, and mana can all be improved solidly. If I get another foundation building pill and take it, the probability of building the foundation will be even greater. However, the foundation building pills in the world of immortal cultivation are controlled by the sects and families. If any of them are released to the market, it will cause a bloody storm. It would be great if I could get the recipe for the foundation building pill. Ronan thought. The recipe for the foundation building pill is easier to obtain than the foundation building pill. After all, the foundation building pill is extremely difficult to refine. Even if you get the recipe, you may not be able to find a master alchemist who can refine the foundation building pill. With the help of Han Meng, refining pills should not be a problem for him. As long as he gets the recipe for the foundation building pill, he can use the resources of the wizard world to refine the foundation building pill and eat it as candy beans. Then the foundation building will be a sure thing. Now that I have reached the 10th level of key refining, the day of foundation building is probably not far away. It seems that I have to prepare early. After Ronan had this idea, he thought about how to get the recipe for the foundation building pill. Like the foundation building pill, the recipe for the foundation building pill is also controlled by the sects and the immortal cultivation families. There are cultivators at the foundation building, elixir forming a nascent soul stage in the sect, and their power is too strong. If he goes in, he will be in danger. The cultivators in the Xiuxin family are at most at the foundation building stage. It seems that we have to start with the Xiuxin family. After thinking for a while, he had an idea in his mind. That is to become an alchemist and enter the Xiuxin family. If he shows an outstanding talent for alchemy, maybe the Xiuxin family will let him participate in the refining of the foundation building pill. In this way, he can get the pill formula. Thinking of this, Ronan planned to go to the immortal realm of the return of the true immortal sect. The first thing he had to do was to obtain the method of alchemy. Immediately, he had an idea and traveled to the Wei State mansion in the Xiuxin world. After arriving at the mansion, he first changed into the clothes of the Xiuxin world. He went to the town, bought some food, and gave it to his 3 experimental subjects. Then, he went to the immortal realm of the return of the true immortal sect. After arriving at the immortal realm of the return of the true immortal sect, he did not go to the mansion area, but to the shanty town. There is no need to go to the shops in the mansion area to buy the basic alchemy method. The goods in the mansion area shops have a premium because the quality is almost absolutely guaranteed. The price of the same item can be much more expensive than that in the shanty town. The alchemy method is a relatively easy to distinguish genuine product. He can go to the market in the shanty town to buy it. With his current 10th level of key refining and various skills, he can walk sideways in the shanty town. If someone deliberately deceives him, he is asking for death. Ronan came to the C-shaped market in the East Shanty town, which was also the place where he sold talismans for the first time. While walking on the road in the market, suddenly, someone saw him and said, "My fellow Taoist, didn't you sell talismans here before? I haven't seen you for a long time. Are you here to sell talismans?" Ronan stopped and looked at the person in front of him. He remembered that this person had indeed bought talismans from him. The man looked around and whispered, "Fellow Taoist, in the few months since you were not here to sell talismans, there have been new talisman sellers. The talismans you drew are not as good as yours, but the prices are much higher. Fellow Taoist, if you plan to sell talismans here again, I and a few other fellow Taoists can also form a thing like the old Talisman Master Association to drive away the current talisman sellers. When the time comes, the spiritual stones earned from selling talismans will be divided equally among everyone." "Thank you, fellow Taoist, I haven't planned to do that yet. Ronan clasped his fists. When the monk saw Ronan was about to leave, he quickly told Ronan his address in the shanty town and told Ronan to find him if he really planned to do so. Ronan clasped his fists again and walked away. As he walked, he looked left and right at the things displayed on the stalls. As he passed by, some stall owners who were not interested in the goods had shining eyes and hurriedly shouted their products. After walking for a while, Ronan stopped at a bookstall. There were several books on the bookstall, which were basically some basic knowledge and spells of cultivation. On the cover of one of the books, there were 4 words written, Notes on Alchemy. Ronan approached, picked up Notes on Alchemy, and began to flip through it. This book was a copy, and only the first few pages had content. After reading the first few pages, he knew that this was an introductory book on alchemy, and it contained some basic knowledge of alchemy. I want this book, Ronan immediately said to the stall owner. Okay, a piece of low-grade spiritual stone. Ronan immediately took out a piece of low-grade spiritual stone from the storage magic device and handed over the money to the stall owner. After getting the whole book, Ronan went to a restaurant in the market, sat down, and ordered a bowl of beef noodles. Then, he began to flip through Notes on Alchemy. When the beef noodles came, he ate noodles with chopsticks in one hand and continued to read Notes on Alchemy with the other hand. After eating a bowl of noodles, he finished reading Notes on Alchemy. He already knew the steps of alchemy. Next, he had to get an alchemy furnace, learn a fire attribute spell, and buy an alchemy recipe. He ordered another bowl of beef noodles, and after he was full, he paid the bill and went to the market again. He didn't see an alchemy furnace in the C-shaped market, so he went to the B-shaped market. Finally, he saw an alchemy furnace for sale at a stall in the B-shaped market. He used his spiritual sense to scan the alchemy furnace, knowing that the quality of the metal used to cast the furnace was not very good, but the furnace was not damaged, so he bought it. After all, he was just a beginner in alchemy, so he bought an ordinary alchemy furnace for the time being. When his alchemy skills were better, he went to the mansion area to buy a better alchemy furnace. After buying the alchemy furnace, he walked around in the B-shaped market and bought an alchemy recipe. The elixir on the recipe was called Golden Marrow Pill. The stall owner said that it was an elixir that cultivators above the middle stage of key refining often use to increase the speed of cultivation. Ronan decided to refine the elixir, which would allow him to practice alchemy and take it on himself to increase his cultivation speed. Chapter 108 Samadhi Fire Technique. With the furnace and recipe, Ronan only lacked fire attributed spells. Paul was a fire wizard, so he might be able to get fire attributed magic from Paul. But he still wanted to see if there were any good fire attributed spells in the Huans and Sector Mortal realm. He first wandered around the markets in the shanty towns, but didn't find any fire attributed spells that caught his eye. They were all low-level spells such as ignition, fireball, and fire-breathing spells. So Ronan entered the mansion area and planned to go to the business to have a look. He arrived at the east area of the mansion and entered the Song family's Jubeo building. The clerk of the Jubeo building recognized that Ronan had been there before and asked about the foundation building bill. He was a cultivator who had the potential to build a foundation, so he immediately made a pot of tea for Ronan, then went upstairs to inform the supervisor. Not long after, the supervisor of the Jubeo building, Shizi, who had fair skin and a gorgeous appearance, came downstairs gracefully. When she saw Ronan, she recognized him as the cultivator who had bought the green lotus and white oxen and power here before. Fellow Daoist, how are you? Shizi's voice was soft and magnetic, with a sense of affinity. Ronan put down his teacup, clasped his fists, and went straight to the point. I wonder what fire attributed spells are there here? Shizi smiled and said, there are quite a few fire attributed spells here. After that, he asked the waiter to go upstairs to get the catalog. Not long after, the waiter brought down a thin book with blue embroidered patterns and handed it to Shizi. Shizi took it, flipped through a few pages, and handed it to Ronan. Fellow Daoist, this is the catalog of spells we can sell, from first level low grade spells to second level low grade spells. Fellow Daoist, take a look at which one you are interested in. Ronan took the book and immediately set his sights on the second level low grade fire attributed spells. Since he had come here, he certainly wanted the best. He saw that there were 2 second level low grade fire attributed spells. One was called Purple Fire Line and the other was called Samadhi Fire Spell. Seeing the 3 words Samadhi Fire Method, Ronan's heart moved slightly. "Bring me the secret book of Samadhi Fire Method," Ronan said immediately. Shizzy winked at the waiter. The waiter nodded and went upstairs again. Shizzy said, "This Samadhi Fire Method is a new spell that has been recently released. It is the ancient monks' ruins a month ago. The monks of the Song family also went there. This Samadhi Fire Method is one of the spell secret books obtained by the Song family. Ancient monks' ruins." Ronan listened and felt that he had missed something during the time he was not in the world of immortal cultivation. But he changed his mind and thought that, even if he was there, he could not do anything. After all, visiting the ruins of ancient monks must be a gathering of forces from all sides, and fighting is inevitable. He didn't want to go to such a place. However, after the news of the ancient monks' ruins came out, the price of talismans must have risen. "I didn't come to sell talismans at that time, so I still lost money." While Ronan was thinking about this, the waiter had already taken down a black wooden box with exquisite patterns. After the waiter handed it to Shizzy, Shizzy opened the box elegantly and presented the copy of Samadhi Fire Method to Ronan. Ronan took the copy out of the box and flipped through the first few pages. He knew that this Samadhi Fire Method was a spell that turned the spirit, energy, and spirit Samadhi into flames. It was a simplified version of the more powerful fire attribute spell Samadhi True Fire in ancient times. Even low-level cultivators can perform it. Like other secret books, this copy only has the first few pages of content that introduces the general situation of this spell. As for how to practice it specifically, you have to pay the money to get a copy with all the contents recorded. "How many spirit stones do you need?" Ronan asked, closing the copy. 5 medium-grade spirit stones, Shizzy replied. Ronan's heart moved. This is the most valuable commodity he has seen since he came to the immortal realm of Huan's insect. Now he didn't have so many middle-grade spirit stones in his pocket. "I have to sell talismans." Ronan thought, drank up the tea, and said goodbye to Shizzy. "If you want to speed up the progress of earning spirit stones, you have to sell master-level talismans. In the art of drawing talismans, as long as you work hard, ordinary talisman masters can draw talismans to the master level. And the master level requires a certain talent for talismans. Some talisman masters, no matter how hard they try, can't reach this level. As for talisman masters who can draw master level talismans, there are even fewer. Therefore, master level talismans are the most scarce. And not every family in the mansion area has a talisman master who can draw master level talismans. Grandmaster level talismans are very powerful and are of great use to every family. If families fight each other, the grandmaster level talismans accumulated by a family may often become the key to the family's victory. Therefore, as long as the grandmaster level talismans appear in the mansion area, the Xiuxin family will definitely spend a lot of spiritual stones and take as many as they can. While thinking, Ronan walked to the shantytown and bought talisman paper made of spiritual plants. Afterwards, he left the Huan's insects fairyland and traveled back to the wizard world. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the wizard world is more abundant. It doesn't take much mana to attract a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Drawing talismans in the wizard world is more labor saving and time saving than drawing talismans in the Xiuxin world. Talisman, Flying Sword Talisman, Grandmaster 81%, Golden Armor Talisman, Grandmaster 52%, Wind Chasing Talisman, Grandmaster 45%, Evil Repelling Talisman, Grandmaster 6%, Bodyguard Talisman, Perfect. Light Body Talisman, perfect. Expand. Although the Bodyguard and Light Body talismans are perfect, they are both first level medium quality talismans. For some Xiuxin families who may have foundation building cultivators, the blessing power may not be enough. What the Xiuxin family would spend a lot of money to buy is the first class top grade Grandmaster level talisman. Although his Flying Sword Talisman has reached the Grandmaster level, he does not want to sell it. The Flying Sword Talisman is a talisman with strong lethality. Selling it in large quantities may not only cause chaos in the mansion area, but he may also use it on himself in the future. Therefore, He plans to sell the golden armor talisman and the wine chasing talisman. However, he has not yet mastered these two talismans. So, in the following days, Ronan stayed in the laboratory of the bungalow and mastered the progress of these two talismans. He also kept the master level talismans in the process of mastering the talismans, and then sold them at the business in the mansion area. Sell as many as you can. After 10 days, Ronan mastered the golden armor talisman and the wine chasing talisman to the grandmaster level. Then, he drew 10 grandmaster level golden armor talismans and 10 grandmaster level wine chasing talismans. He estimated that these grandmaster level golden armor talismans and wine chasing talismans, plus the master level talismans, would be enough for him to exchange for 5 mid-grade spirit stones. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109. Start with fire method and prepare spiritual plants. Ronan drank the primary transformation potion and came to the immortal realm of the return to the true sect. He planned to sell the talismans in only one business. Behind the business was the immortal cultivation family. In fact, it was to sell the talismans to one immortal cultivation family. That immortal cultivation family received a large number of talismans and would not spread the matter to avoid causing fear and suspicion from other immortal cultivation families. Of course, a immortal cultivation family may have spies from other immortal cultivation families. To be on the safe side, Ronan decided to sell the talismans in the west district of the mansion, because the place where the Samadhi fire method secret book was sold was the east district of the mansion. The east district and the west district of the mansion are located at the east and west ends of the spiritual vein of the return to the true sect, respectively, and they are not adjacent to each other, and the distance is far. The two immortal cultivation families bordering the mansion area often have disputes because of occupying territory and other reasons. The immortal cultivation families in the east district and the west district of the mansion have the least disputes. It is unlikely that the families in the two districts will place spies in each other's families. In this way, the news that he sold a large number of talismans in the west area of the mansion is unlikely to spread to the east area of the mansion. After all, after someone sold a large number of talismans, he went to Jubeo Lao and spent a lot of spirit stones to buy secret books. This is really easy to make people think. After thinking it over, Ronan went to the west area of the mansion. He walked around the west area of the mansion for a while and asked about the distribution of forces in the west area of the mansion. He did not intend to sell the talismans to the strongest Zeuxan family in the west area of the mansion, because the opponents of the strongest Zeuxan family are often Zeuxan families in other mansions. There may be spies from the strongest Zeuxan family in other mansions in the family. Other Zeuxan families do not have such hidden dangers. Moreover, if they sell to Zeuxan families with weaker strength, they will block the news more strictly, because they are afraid that the information of their large collection of talismans will be spread, and other families will be suspicious. Ronan came to the third-ranked family business in the west area of the mansion. After entering, he immediately skipped the clerk and asked to see the supervisor directly. And, when talking to the supervisor, she asked her to tell the clerk to leave. Then, she took out the talismans she wanted to sell and showed them to the supervisor. After listening to what Ronan said, the supervisor knew that these talismans were all first grade top grade talismans above the master level, and 20 of them were grandmaster level talismans. She could not hide her surprise. The supervisor was a cultivator of the 8th level of key refining. His own cultivation was not low, and he had a certain ability to identify talismans, magic tools, treasures, etc. After she carefully scanned Ronan's talismans with her spiritual sense, she knew that what Ronan said was true. Finally, she bought all the golden armor talismans and wine chasing talismans that Ronan took out for the price of 6 medium grade spirit stones plus 20 low grade spirit stones. And, at the time of the transaction, she hoped that Ronan would not spread the transaction. Ronan of course agreed readily. Then, the supervisor tried to win over Ronan on behalf of her family. She said that, as long as Ronan joined her family, he would be protected by her family, and receive financial support from her family. Her family would arrange for money, friends, and land. In the future, he only needed to focus on drawing talismans, and no longer need to worry about other things. Ronan refused bluntly, then put away the spirit stone, bowed, and said goodbye. After leaving the west area of the mansion, Ronan circled the spiritual veins of the Huanzan sect, and arrived at the east area of the mansion. At this time, the effect of the primary transformation potion had not yet dissipated. The power of the primary transformation potion is integrated into the skin and flesh, and cannot be removed by external force. The transformation potion changes the appearance. When it is taken, it increases the plasticity of the skin, muscles, and bones, allowing the user to change the state of the skin, muscles, and the length of the bones through the mind. But after a period of time after taking it, the plasticity of the skin, muscles, and bones will deteriorate, and their shape will be completely fixed, and it can no longer be changed back by the mind. If you want to restore your appearance, you can only wait for the effect of the potion to pass. So, he found a tavern in the east area of the mansion, and ordered a pot of wine made from spiritual rice and a few plates of hairy crabs. These hairy crabs were raised in the lakes of the Huanzan sect's fairyland. The crab meat contained spiritual energy, and tasted much more delicious than those in the secular world. He drank wine, and ate crabs, while waiting for the effect of the primary transformation potion to pass. After more than an hour, he felt a sense of creeping in his muscles and his bones were slightly sore, and he knew that the effect of the potion would pass. So, he hurriedly ate up the wine and food on the table, paid the bill, left the restaurant, found a deserted place, and waited for himself to change back to his original appearance. After changing back to his original appearance, Ronan went straight to the Jubeo building, and bought the Samadhi fire method. Then, he walked to the medicine shop. To refine the golden marrow pill, 3 kinds of medicinal materials are needed: crane grass, marrow washing ginseng, and the antlers of the first level demon deer. Crane grass and marrow washing ginseng, he planned to buy at the medicine shop in the Huanzan sect's fairyland. As for deer antler, he planned to obtain it in the wizard world. However, he visited the medicine shop in the east area of the mansion, and found that the 2 medicinal materials, crane grass and cleansing marrow ginseng, were almost all used by the sects and the cultivation families, and rarely circulated outside. No wonder the pill formula is so cheap. There is this reason. After the casual cultivator obtained the pill formula, it was also very difficult to find the medicinal materials. So, he planned to find similar magic plants of these 2 medicinal materials in the wizard world. Although he was a magic plant master in the wizard world, and knew most of the magic plants in the wizard world, but in the cultivation world, he was a complete novice in spiritual plants. He didn't even know the 2 spiritual plants in the golden marrow pill recipe, crane grass and cleansing marrow ginseng. So, he had to buy a book on spiritual plants in the bookstore, and learn some knowledge about spiritual plants in the cultivation world. He went to the bookstore where he bought records of cultivation sects before. Sitting behind the counter today was still the 12 or 13-year-old boy with a melon-shaped hat. After not seeing him for a while, the boy was still at the 2nd level of key refining. Ronan walked silently. When he came to the boy in the melon-shaped hat, he was still immersed in reading. Ronan's eyes swept over the cover of the book the boy was reading. Just by looking at the title of the book, he knew it was an erotic novel. Ronan tapped the counter lightly. Wow. The boy in the melon-shaped hat was shocked, and put away the erotic novel in his hand. His face flushed slightly, and he squeezed out a smile. Sir. Oh, long time no see. What book do you want to buy? Are there any books about spiritual plants? Ronan looked at the bookshelf. Yes. The boy in the melon-shaped hat led Ronan to a bookshelf. Ronan looked at the bookshelf, and after a while, he pulled out a book called Spiritual Plants and Herbal Classics. This was also a copy, and the content on it was only the catalog. Ronan looked at the catalog, and knew that this book recorded more than 600 kinds of spiritual plants. Crane grass and cleansing ginseng were among them. Take this one. Ronan said. Sir, 50 low-grade spirit stones. The boy in the melon-shaped hat said. Ronan immediately gave him the spirit stones, and took away the spiritual plants and herbs. Chapter 110 Magic Plants as Medicine to Make Alchemy. After Ronan returned to the bungalow in the wizard world, he sat at the dining table. After drinking a glass of wine, he took out the spiritual plant Materia Medica and read it carefully. The book said that crane grass is a spiritual plant that increases the speed of refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, while cleansing ginseng is a spiritual plant that promotes blood circulation. Suddenly, Ronan had two corresponding magic plants in his mind: phoenix core grass and the rhizome of dragon blood tree. The efficacy and characteristics of these two magic plants are very similar to crane grass and cleansing ginseng. The characteristic of phoenix core grass is to increase the efficiency of energy particle conversion. The characteristic of the rhizome of dragon blood tree is to promote blood circulation. Moreover, these two magic plants are in the Gulp magic forest outside the Triumph City. There is no need for him to go far away to find other magic plants. Thinking of this, Ronan left the city and went to collect magic plants. Ronan used the magnetic torrent and used the anti-geomagnetic field force to push himself forward quickly. At this time, a faint mist filled the Gulp forest. The sun shone through the gaps between the branches and leaves, forming oblique beams of light in the air. As Ronan flew past, the mist was stirred up and rolled in the air. Abwin had told him the approximate location of the phoenix core grass and the dragon blood tree. He knew that these two magical plants could be collected without going too deep into the Gulp magic forest. Ronan planned to plant these two plants in his own botanical garden, so that he would not have to come here often to collect them when refining the golden marrow pill in the future. As he flew, he released his spiritual sense. He found that there were two teams hunting magic beasts around him. Both were composed of wizard apprentices and transformed knights. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Ronan avoided the teams hunting magic beasts as usual. After taking a detour, he headed towards the location of the phoenix core grass. At this time, the two teams hunting magic beasts were behind him. He sensed that the magic beast that one team wanted to hunt was actually running towards the other team. The monster was killed by another team. After the two teams exchanged some valiant curse words, they started fighting. The wizard raised his wand and released a series of witchcraft. The knight protected himself with a shield and wielded a cross sword, attacking the other side. Soon, the two teams were fighting in a group, and the battle was fierce. Ronan ignored it and continued to move forward. Soon, the two fighting teams left his perception range. He came to a forest with phoenix core grass growing. The phoenix core grass is named after the shape of its leaves spreading out, like the wings of a phoenix. Ronan used the wizard's hand to pick grass quickly. Soon, he picked 60% of the grass in a large meadow. After collecting the phoenix core grass, he immediately flew towards the direction of the dragon blood tree. On the way, his consciousness sensed that there was a cattle-like monster in front of him. Because it was not a deer-like monster, he had no intention of hunting it. He still took a detour and bypassed it. After a while, he arrived at the place where the dragon blood tree was planted. The dragon blood tree got its name because its bark was like dragon scales and dark red blood color. After Ronan collected the rhizomes of the dragon blood tree, he left immediately, flying around the periphery of the forest, searching for the traces of the deer monster with his spiritual sense. Soon, Ronan sensed the deer monster and flew over immediately. He used the entanglement spell to control the monster, and then used the dark elf dagger to cut off the antlers. Then, he let the monster go. He only took the antlers and did not need to take other materials from the monster, nor did he need to hurt the monster's life. Moreover, after letting it go, he could come back to cut the antlers when they grew again. Ronan wandered in the forest for a while and took 10 pairs of antlers. He cut off the antlers of a deer monster and let it go. The spiritual sense sensed that the deer monster ran away in fear for a while and then ran into a lion monster head on. Although the deer-like monsters and lion-like monsters are both medium-level first-level monsters, it is obvious that the lion-like monsters are more powerful than the deer-like monsters. The lion-like monsters rushed forward with their fangs and claws, and the deer-like monsters could only escape. Ronan thought, if this deer-like monster died, wouldn't there be one less deer antler in the future? So, he immediately performed the magnetic torrent. A magnetic force flowed through his body, and the anti-geomagnetic force was released. His figure turned into a residual image, like an arrow, and shot towards the lion-like monsters and deer-like monsters. While flying forward, He recited a spell. He pressed his hand forward, and suddenly a purple-red light shot out of thin air towards the lion-like monster. This was the witchcraft he got from the withered druid, the withered light. Monsters always have the instinct of beasts that humans don't have. Even if Ronan came silently, the lion-like monsters could sense it. It suddenly stopped chasing the deer monster and turned back. However, Ronan predicted the lion monster's movements and aimed the withering light at the back of the lion monster. So, as soon as the lion monster retreated, the purple-red light immediately shot at the lion monster. After the lion monster roared, the shiny fur on its body began to dim, and its originally agile body softened visibly. But the lion monster still had the ability to move. Ronan continued to chant the spell, pressed his hand, and shot out another withering light. Although Ronan had not yet built a witchcraft model of the withering light, the release speed was slow, but his shot still shot at the position where the lion monster was running forward. So, the lion monster was hit by another withering light while stumbling forward. The two withering lights finally took away most of the vitality of the lion monster. It crouched on the forest floor, scratched its limbs twice, and tried to run again, but it could no longer run. Ronan then emitted another withering light, ending the life of the lion-like monster. Then, he left the place. On the way out of the Guld Forest, in order to avoid taking a detour, he inevitably passed by the place where the two monster hunting teams had just fought fiercely. He sensed that there were a total of 10 people in the two monster hunting teams, but now only 3 were left standing, and the remaining 7 were all dead. The remaining 3 were also injured. At this time, the 3 were cleaning up the battlefield, first touching the corpses on the ground and taking away all the valuable things. Then, the 3 used witchcraft and weapons to destroy the scene, probably to prevent someone from investigating and finding out about them. Ronan continued to perform the magnetic torrent and glided in the air. Not long after, he left the Guld Forest and flew towards Triumph City. When he was about to reach the village outside Cakesawan City, he stopped casting spells and landed on the ground. He arrived at a farm, rode on the horse that was left there, and galloped back to Cakesawan City. Chapter 111. The speed of practicing the ancient wood longevity technique is improved. After returning the horse in the lower city, Ronan walked back to the middle city. He returned to the bungalow and entered the laboratory. He used his spirit to probe into the storage magic device and took out the furnace, medicinal materials and other items. The furnace was almost half a person's height. His laboratory was originally small, and with the furnace, the space seemed even smaller. He felt that he needed to buy more magic stones and carve extended magic patterns to expand the space of the laboratory. This furnace was bronze in color, with animal faces and patterns carved on all 4 sides, and there were openings on both sides. According to the alchemy notes, there are 2 ways to make elixirs. One is to place the furnace on the ground, fire mouth and use the ground fire to make elixirs. The other is for the alchemist to use fire to make elixirs himself. The first method is the most labor saving and suitable for refining a large number of elixirs. Often, skilled alchemists will use this method to look after multiple furnaces. If the elixir is successful, it is multiple furnaces that make the elixir together. The second method is to make elixir without ground fire. It is usually used to refine a small amount of elixir. The alchemy notes also said that alchemy requires more than just an alchemy furnace. Alchemy requires a lot of tools, such as a distiller for distillation, a grinder for grinding, an alchemy furnace, an alchemy tripod, a cooking pot, and a pump. However, the tools he used to make magic potions all had corresponding functions, so there was no need to prepare them separately. Let's start refining the golden marrow pill. Ronan recalled the steps of alchemy in the alchemy notes. Then, with a thought in his mind, he condensed a wizard's hand. The recipe said that crane grass needed to be boiled for a long time, and the marrow washing ginseng needed to be roasted until there was no water left, and then ground into powder. Ronan immediately manipulated the wizard's hand and worked for a while. Then he prepared and processed the materials, and then he started to make the pill. Before refining the pill, he had to light a fire. He was refining a pill for cultivation, and ordinary fire could not make a pill. Therefore, he needed the fire method. He had not practiced the samadhi fire method since he got it. So, he moved away from the alchemy furnace and tried the fire method first. He recalled the secret book and mobilized his spirit, that is, his blood, magic power and mental power. Soon, the three combined and turned into a force in his body. He felt that this force could be ejected from his mouth and nose, or from the pores of the acupuncture points. He chose to eject it from his mouth and nose. This force was a warm breath in the body. Once it was outside the body, it immediately turned into a blazing flame. Samadhi True Fire, entry 1%. He summoned Hang Meng and adjusted the value, but found that the value appeared like this. It seems that the secret book is not wrong. The Samadhi Fire method is indeed a simplified version of the Samadhi True Fire. Ronan thought and continued to practice the Samadhi True Fire, trying to control the intensity of the flame. When performing the Samadhi True Fire, physical strength, magic power and mental power were consumed quickly. Fortunately, he had 2 lifelong trees that were always replenishing him. Moreover, the wizard world is rich in spiritual energy, and his own recovery speed is not slow. Samadhi True Fire, 5% for beginners. After more than 2 hours, he felt that he could control the flame. Immediately, he stopped practicing and sat cross-legged at the foot of the furnace. Mobilizing his spirit, a ball of fire suddenly burst out from his mouth and nose and crashed into the furnace. After the furnace was heated, Ronan manipulated the wizard's hand to pour water from the water outlet of the furnace and then added medicinal materials. Increase the heat. Ronan's heart moved, and the Samadhi True Fire suddenly became stronger. Alchemy requires perfect control of the heat, and the time to open the furnace must be perfect, not too early, not too late. So Ronan summoned Hang Meng and asked him to detect the state of the medicinal materials in the furnace and the temperature of the furnace. As the refining was going on, Ronan occasionally added water from the water outlet of the furnace. Above the furnace, there was a haze of smoke rising from the outlet, and a medicinal fragrance filled the air. As time passed, a stream of white gas with a reddish hue emerged from the furnace, like tiny threads. At the same time, a fragrant aroma filled the room, making people's blood boil and their mouths water. Ronan summoned Hang Meng and adjusted the value. Golden Marrow Pill, 35% for beginners. He stood up and opened the furnace and found that there were black waste slag and 2 pills with a golden base and a red pattern on them. Ronan condensed the hand of a wizard and lifted the 2 pills up. After the pills were lifted up, the fragrance of the pills became more fragrant. He first used Hang Meng to analyze the pills, and after confirming that the toxicity was extremely low, he swallowed one of the pills. Suddenly, a medicinal power dissolved in his stomach and spread throughout his body, making him feel warm and comfortable. Ronan went to the botanical garden immediately. With a thought in his mind, the 2 natal immortal trees immediately released the light of the holy tree. Golden light illuminated the entire botanical garden. Ronan immediately felt that his physical state had reached a new level. He immediately sat down under the mother tree of his natal immortal tree and began to practice the ancient wood immortal technique. Suddenly, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered towards him, and it was refined in his meridians at a faster speed. The speed of practicing the ancient wood immortal technique has indeed increased. After the medicinal power of 1 golden marrow pill was refined, he continued to swallow another golden marrow pill. In this way, the time when I reach the peak of ki refining can be advanced. Ronan thought while practicing. After practicing for more than an hour, the medicinal power of the 2nd golden marrow pill was also exhausted by him. Then, he went to the laboratory and continued to refine the pill. Now, his proficiency in making golden marrow pills is only at the entry level. According to the notes on alchemy, the more proficient each pill is in refining, the more quantity can be refined at the same time, and the greater the efficacy. Each pill is divided into 3 grades according to its efficacy: high, medium and low. Then, what I have refined now should be a low-grade golden marrow pill. If I want to refine it to a high-grade one, until it can be appreciated by the Zeuxan family, I have to continue to work hard. Ronan thought, and his heart moved. His spirit, energy, and spirit merged and turned into a force, which spurted out from his mouth and nose. Suddenly, a blazing true fire was sprayed out by him and hit the bottom of the pill furnace. At the same time, he manipulated the wizard's hand to put in the herbs and water. The proficiency of Samadhi True Fire and Golden Marrow Pill was gradually increasing. Just as Ronan was preparing to build the foundation, the Fleming family was waiting for the letter he sent back home. However, the Fleming family never thought that Ronan's father wrote to Ronan to ask about the magic pattern that restrained the undead creatures. Ronan did not tell Ronan about the magic pattern, and he did not even send a letter back. And the person sent by the Fleming family to Triumph City before also disappeared. So the Fleming family prepared to send people to Triumph City again. Chapter 112 Elemental Body Refining Wizard, Mithril. The patriarch of the Fleming family, Yusuf Fleming, was busy arranging the overthrow of the royal family every day, and the task of inquiring about the magic pattern that restrained the undead creatures fell on his fifth son. Yusuf's fifth son was born to him and his second wife, and his name was Jason. He was a 28-year-old man with curly hair, pale face, and a playful look in his eyes. He became a formal wizard a month ago, and his heart became more proud, and the playfulness in his eyes became stronger. On this day, he was using thunder and lightning to train his body. His wizard path was different from that of most wizards. He was a body refining wizard, and he was not a blood refining wizard common in the kingdom, but an elemental body refining wizard. Elemental body refining wizards specialize in using certain elemental particles to amplify their muscles. He was in the open space in the courtyard. With his hands raised high, he chanted a spell. About 3 meters above his head, there were 2 dark thunderclouds. With a few thunderclaps, lightning snaked down from the thundercloud and landed on him. At this time, he was shirtless, revealing a pale and muscular body. He only wore a pair of black shorts. After the lightning landed on him, it immediately dispersed and turned into strands of lightning, crawling on his fair skin like a reptile. After a while, it penetrated into his skin. He trembled, rolled his eyes, and a comfortable expression appeared on his face. After practicing for a while, he walked to the side and picked up a giant sword from a shelf. Under the sun, the giant sword glowed with a layer of bright silver and light blue. This is because he added a little mithril when casting the giant sword. Mithril and fine gold are both very precious metals. He only added a little mithril to the giant sword, which made the price of this giant sword no longer measurable by the Valiant gold coin. After adding mithril, his sword is harder and has stronger magic conduction. He held the sword with both hands, and the weight of the sword made the muscles of his hands bulge. He swung the sword hard, and lightning suddenly appeared in his hands, gathering on the giant sword. Then, an arc of lightning spewed out from the giant sword and hit the floor tiles like a whip. Suddenly, the floor tiles shattered, and a dark gully was chopped out by him. Just as Jason was practicing, a man in his 40s suddenly ran in and said, "Master, Andrew, Alan, and Angela want to see you." "Why do you want to see me?" Jason put away the giant sword, grabbed it with his backhand, and looked at the man and said, "They all want to go to Cakesawan City to do things for the family." The man said. Jason sneered, thinking to himself, "It seems that the news that I will send someone to Triumph City to contact Ronan Lawrence has been spread. I guess they all know that Ronan Lawrence is just a wizard apprentice with poor wizard qualifications and has not been trained as a knight, so they think this mission is not dangerous. Triumph City is the most luxurious place in the kingdom. Those guys naturally want to have fun in Triumph City when they go on missions. I guess Triss is trapped in some brothel in Triumph City, so there is no news for a long time." Suddenly, Jason had an idea in his mind. He has grown up so big, but he has never been to Triumph City. He heard that there are elves and orcs working as prostitutes in Triumph City. Elves with fair skin, slim and curvy figures, a pair of exquisite pointed ears, and slightly glowing skin. Dark elves with corrupt morals and dissolute temperaments. Cat women with long and straight cat tails and furry cat ears in their hair. Dragon women with deep purple skin, perfect figure, and excellent physical strength. All of them made him fascinated as soon as he heard them. "Why don't I go there?" Jason thought to himself. "Afu, go and get ready. I'm going to Triumph City," he immediately said to the man in his 40s beside him. After hearing this, Afu said, "Master, do you want to carry out the mission yourself? But you are a first level formal wizard. It's a waste of your talent to deal with a first level wizard apprentice. If the master knows, he will blame you." Jason snorted. As long as I bring back the information about the magic pattern that restrains necromancy, my father won't blame me much. Of course, he knew that his father would not be happy if he did this. However, when he thought about being able to indulge himself in Triumph City, nothing else mattered. It's decided. Go and prepare, Jason said. After that, Jason swung his mithril greatsword again. About half a month passed. Ronan spent a lot of time refining the Golden Marrow Pill. Golden Marrow Pill, Mastery 67%. The proficiency of Golden Marrow Pill reached the Mastery level. This allowed him to steadily refine medium level Golden Marrow Pills. Samadhi True Fire, Entry 35%. After practicing for a long time, the power of this flame is also very great, but its proficiency is still entry level. It seems that Samadhi True Fire is an extremely profound spell. Ronan's mind was flooded with the data fed back by Han Meng, and he thought, because of the increase in the proficiency of Samadhi True Fire and Golden Marrow Pill, his speed of refining pills has increased a lot. On this day, he released Samadhi True Fire, and after refining several furnaces of pills, he exhausted his mana. Then, he ate 2 Golden Marrow Pills, and sat cross-legged under his natal immortal tree. While practicing the ancient wood longevity technique, he recovered. The nearby spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered towards him, and flowed into his pores. Ancient wood longevity technique, 17th level 5%. The proficiency of this technique reached the 17th level 3 days ago. The improvement of the ancient wood longevity technique, coupled with the fact that he himself is a greenwood spirit body, the speed at which he breathes in and out the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is extremely fast. However, because the spiritual energy in the wizard world is rich, no spiritual energy vortex has formed around him. If he practiced in the shanty town of the Huans and Sex Fairyland, a spiritual energy vortex would definitely form, attracting the attention of the neighbors. The verdant mist-like ancient wood longevity magic power in Ronan's Danshan is spinning. Moreover, the mist is getting thicker and thicker, and there is a tendency to transform into liquid. While he was practicing, the 2 natal longevity trees were also constantly refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, part of which was used to grow themselves, and the other part was merged into his Danshan. In the Danshan, there were always little green lights, which were the mana fed back by the life tree. The little green lights, once generated, fell into the mana vortex of the Danshan like snowflakes. The misty mana became darker in color. After more than 2 hours, the power of the 2 medium-sized Golden Marrow Pills was completely consumed by him. Then, he took a medicine bottle, poured out 2 more Golden Marrow Pills, and swallowed them. Gradually, he felt that there was a power brewing in the Danshan. Chapter 113 Key Refining Level 11. Conditions for promotion to a formal wizard. It's almost a breakthrough. Ronan sensed the power in his Danshan, and knew that he had reached the bottleneck of the 10th level of key refining. He collected his mind, and continued to practice. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth continued to gather towards him. The vortex of the ancient wood longevity magic power in his Danshan was spinning faster and faster. After about half an hour, he sensed a force gushing out of his Danshan. He looked inside his Danshan, and saw that the ancient wood longevity magic power in it had a thicker mist and a deeper green color. With a thought in his mind, he gave Han Meng an order to adjust the values. Lifespan: 392 strength, 50 to spirit, 61 mana, 51 cultivation realm, key refining 11th level wizard level. 3rd level wizard apprentice finally reached the 11th level of key refining. Ronan's mind received the data fed back by Han Meng, and he was excited. But why is my wizard level still a 3rd level wizard apprentice? When he borrowed Paul's identity and entered the Kingdom Wizard Academy, he had seen a 1st level formal wizard from afar. At that time, he used Han Meng to analyze the data of that 1st level formal wizard. He saw that the spirit and mana values of the formal wizard were both over 50, and his strength was not even as good as his. But why? According to the data Han Meng fed back, I'm not a formal wizard. Could it be that there are other conditions required to be promoted to a formal wizard? Ronan could not see any books related to the promotion to a formal wizard in the Kingdom Wizard Academy. This is because Paul, whose identity he borrowed, is only a 2nd level wizard apprentice. in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy, only books that can be seen by second level wizard apprentices and below can be seen. He estimated that the books related to the promotion to a formal wizard can only be seen by third level wizard apprentices. I wonder if Paul knows the conditions for promotion to a formal wizard? Ronan thought. But then he thought that the wizard world has a very strict blockade of knowledge. Unlike the world of cultivation, books on foundation building can be bought in bookstores. Paul is only a second level wizard apprentice, and it is unlikely that he knows the knowledge of formal wizards. It is estimated that only when he reaches the third level wizard apprentice, he may be qualified to contact this knowledge. Why not go to Awen to find out? Ronan had such a thought in his mind. Awen is a third level wizard apprentice, and it is estimated that she knows the knowledge of formal wizards. Ronan thought about it, prepared himself, went out, and walked towards Awen's bungalow. Of course, he would not ask about this directly, but asked about it during the chat, just like he had done several times before to get knowledge. Half an hour later, Ronan walked out of Awen's bungalow. He finally got the conditions for promotion to a formal wizard. To be promoted to a formal wizard, you need to have a second level witchcraft model in your mind. In other words, knowledge and wisdom are the key conditions for promotion to a formal wizard. When he heard the key conditions for a formal wizard, he understood the meaning of what Awen said that day. As wizards practice, the further they go, the less important their qualifications are, and the most important thing is their learning talent. A wizard's learning talent allows him to acquire more profound knowledge, thus breaking through the bottleneck. Some wizards with high qualifications, but poor learning talent, although they practice quickly, stay in the bottleneck for a long time. Ronan happened to remember that there was a second level witchcraft in his storage magic device, Bone Substitute. This witchcraft is a second level medium witchcraft, which he obtained from a necromancer when he killed him. At that time, because this witchcraft was too high for him, he did not learn it. Bone Substitute is just a means of escaping. Thinking of this, Ronan decided to practice this witchcraft. He returned to the bungalow and traveled to the world of cultivation. Because the spiritual energy in the secular world of the world of cultivation is thin, if he wants to cast witchcraft, he must use all his own mana. And the second level medium witchcraft consumes a lot of mana. Therefore, he entered the immortal realm of Huan's insect and found an uninhabited grove in the shanty town. When he reached the clearing in the forest, he released his divine sense to check if there was anyone within a radius of 800 meters. After confirming that there was no one, he summoned Hang Meng and called out the spell and witchcraft model formula of this witchcraft. This witchcraft is actually a combination of space witchcraft, summoning witchcraft and necromancy. To perform this witchcraft is to summon a skeleton from the dead plane to accept the attack for oneself. And oneself will briefly pass through the space gap between the dead plane and the world where one is, and then flash in another place 5 meters away. So, in the eyes of others, it is a bone substitute. The higher the proficiency of the bone substitute, the more powerful the skeleton summoned, and the farther the flash distance can be. Because the ability of the skeleton to resist blows is often higher than that of ordinary wizards. Therefore, after performing the bone substitute, he cannot help but avoid an attack. If the summoned skeletons are not destroyed in one blow, they can immediately attack the enemy, achieving an unexpected effect. After Ronan recalled for a while, he began to chant the spell. Soon, he felt the space nearby twisted, as if it had turned into water, and he could travel to a space at any time. Then, he continued to chant the spell, and moved his body to the side. He immediately entered a space with a dark background. There were multiple white light spots around the space. Then, he used his mind to control his body, moving forward in the dark, towards one of the white light spots. The next moment, the darkness in front of his eyes disappeared. The shock in front of him returned to the scenery of the forest. The distance was exactly 5 meters before the flash. And where he was originally standing, a bare skeleton without armor and equipment, smelled his breath, and the dark blue flames in the dark eye sockets suddenly became strong, rushing towards him. Ronan's eyes shone with brilliance, and his spirit, energy, and soul merged. The next moment, he opened his mouth. A blazing flame with extremely high temperature, mixed with a ray of rosy light, burst out from his mouth and nose. Like a piece of cloth, it covered the skeleton. After 3 breaths, Ronan retracted the samadhi true fire. He saw only a little bit of ashes left on the ground. He performed a primary wind control technique and blew the ashes on the ground everywhere. Then, he performed this witchcraft many times. As soon as the skeletons came here, he used the samadhi true fire to burn them into ashes. These skeletons were weaker than he thought. He didn't know whether it was the fire attribute spell that restrained the skeletons, or because the samadhi true fire was powerful. Or maybe the samadhi true fire also had a restraining effect on undead creatures. Skeleton substitute, 3% for beginners. Skeleton substitute, 4% for beginners. The proficiency of the skeleton substitute gradually increased. The distance he flashed at gradually became farther, and the skeletons he summoned seemed to become more and more powerful. Chapter 114 Official Wizard. Ronan used his mental power to construct a witchcraft model in his mind. After 3 days of practice, he finally mastered the bone substitute to proficient. At this level, he can construct a witchcraft model. In fact, many wizards, even if they can perform a witchcraft skillfully, cannot successfully construct a witchcraft model. But Ronan has the help of Hangmeng. The witchcraft model pattern moved out of the 3-dimensional coordinate system and fell into his mind. He just needs to use his mind and outline it. Not long after, a witchcraft model with 20 vertices was suspended in his mind. At the moment, when the witchcraft model was constructed, Ronan suddenly felt a strange feeling in his mind. He knew that he had been promoted to a formal wizard. Awan once told him that the promotion to a formal wizard would not improve much in mental power and magic power. The change is mainly that formal wizards have a more thorough understanding of the operating rules of energy particles. When performing witchcraft, less magic power can be used to prime more energy particles. In other words, being promoted to a formal wizard can instantly increase the power of each of his witchcraft. I wonder if the power of my spells will also increase? Thinking of this, Ronan summoned his spirit, opened his mouth, and a stream of samadhi true fire spurted out. He summoned Hangmeng and analyzed the temperature of the flame. He found that it was indeed much hotter than before he was promoted to a formal wizard. Sure enough, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and energy particles are the same thing, with very similar operating rules. Since the power of witchcraft has increased, the power of spells will also increase. Ronan thought and took back the samadhi true fire. After leaving the immortal realm of Huan's insect, he returned to the wizard world with a thought, intending to continue to improve his proficiency in the golden marrow pill. Strive to enter the Zeuxan family as an alchemist as soon as possible to obtain the recipe for the foundation building pill. Jason Fleming came to Triumph City as early as 10 days ago. He and his 3 men came on griffins. When he was about to arrive at Triumph City, he and his men found a forest and put down the griffin. He and his men drank the intermediate transformation potion. He wanted to change his identity and enter Triumph City. After all, he was the young master of the 7 wizard families. If his identity was discovered by others, it would attract the attention of others. This would not be convenient for him to act. After changing his appearance, he found a village, bought 3 horses, and then went to Triumph City. When he arrived at Triumph City, Jason naturally wanted to have some fun first. He had tasted elves and orcs. Money was spent like water. But as the young master of the 7 wizard families, money was just a number to him. The value of the giant sword with mithril in his storage magic weapon alone was probably not enough, even if he sold more than 10 castles. That day, Jason slept in a brothel until noon, and finally remembered the business. He used his powerful arms to push away the dragon girl who was stronger than him. He stood up from the bed, called the maid, washed up, and then left the room, and walked into a hall. In the hall, his 3 men were waiting. After seeing the 3 men, Jason whispered, "How is it? Have you found the person?" One of them said, "We didn't find Triss, but we did find out where Ronan Lawrence lives." "Where is Triss going?" Jason cursed softly and said, "Where does Ronan Lawrence live?" The man immediately told him Ronan's address. "There are so many people, I'll go see him myself. Don't follow me," Jason said, and walked out. The 3 men listened and waited in the hall. Although this is a brothel, they didn't dare to indulge themselves at all, for fear that Jason would give an order and they would not be able to react in time, and then make mistakes, and lose their lives. Jason's storage magic device contained several bottles of intermediate transformation potions. Whenever he had a period of time, he would take out the bottle of wine containing the intermediate transformation potion and drink a sip to maintain his appearance. Not long after, he arrived in front of Ronan's bungalow. He knocked on the wooden door. Ronan, who was practicing in the botanical garden, had long noticed the stranger approaching his bungalow and was immediately alert. He had stopped practicing, walked out of the botanical garden, and closed the door. Through his spiritual sense, he was able to glimpse the strength of this stranger. He was a first-level formal wizard. Moreover, his physical strength was not weak. The next moment, the door was knocked. Who? Ronan asked. Southeast Province, Fleming family. A low voice came from outside the door. Jason thought that Ronan grew up in the Southeast Province since he was a child, and the reputation of the Fleming family would naturally be able to intimidate him. Reporting the family directly would save a lot of time. After hearing about this family, Ronan had already anticipated what this person was going to do, probably for the evil repelling talisman disguised as a magic pattern. Ronan opened the door with a respectful look. Which lord of the Fleming family are you? Ronan asked as he let Jason in. Jason Fleming, Jason answered after entering the house, and Ronan closed the door. He glanced at Ronan's bungalow and found nothing unusual, so he withdrew his gaze and said, "Tell me, how did you get the magic pattern stone that restrains necromancy?" Ronan replied, "I bought it from Diagon Alley." Diagon Alley? Jason frowned. "It's a black market," Ronan explained. Jason was stunned when he heard it. He guessed that Ronan accidentally learned the magic pattern that restrains necromancy. Or maybe Ronan knew someone who had this kind of magic stone engraved with the magic pattern that restrains necromancy. But he never thought that this stone came from the black market. The vendors in the black market are the most mobile. They may be here today, but they may not be there tomorrow. If this magic stone came from the black market, it would be difficult for him to obtain the method of carving the magic pattern. In this way, he would not be able to go back to report. For a moment, he really couldn't accept this result. Lying. Jason thought that Ronan might be deceiving him, staring at Ronan and said, "You are definitely lying. You'd better tell the truth, otherwise your family will suffer." As he said that, he pressed his right hand towards Ronan, wanting to restrain Ronan and torture him. Ronan let Jason's right hand press over. When Jason was emotionally unstable, Ronan wanted to touch Jason and bring him to the world of cultivation. However, he used Hong Meng to scan Jason and knew that Jason's strength had reached 55, a few points more than him. He expected that if he made a slight move, Jason would be on guard, so it would be better to let Jason touch him. At the moment when Jason's big hand grabbed his arm, Ronan's heart moved. Suddenly, both of them disappeared into the bungalow. Chapter 115 Samadhi True Fire, Mithril. In a forest in the world of immortal cultivation, Ronan and Jason appeared. Jason was still holding Ronan's arm at this time. But Jason was completely shocked by the scene in front of him. He was in the bungalow just a moment ago, but how come he was in the forest now? For a moment, he felt that the person in front of him was not as simple as the intelligence said. Just when his eyes returned from the surrounding environment and looked at Ronan, he saw Ronan opened his mouth, and a blazing flame spurted out from his mouth and nose, hitting his face. Jason immediately used his magic power to cast an energy particle shield for himself. However, when he cast it, he found that there were almost no energy particles around. Just as he hurriedly changed the way his magic power was running and wanted to release another defensive witchcraft, the blazing flame had already covered his head. Jason screamed in pain under the high temperature. His whole face and dark golden hair were wrapped in flames and burned. Soon, he lost consciousness. The scream stopped abruptly. Ronan did not use the Samadhi fire with all his strength. He wanted to save this man's life. He asked this man who else knew he was here. Bang! Jason fell to the ground in a daze. Ronan used his mind to draw back the Samadhi fire burning in Jason's head. Jason's head was exposed, which was burned beyond recognition. Ronan used Hong Meng to detect that Jason's vital signs were getting weaker and weaker. So, he immediately had an idea. He sacrificed a kingling sword and cut all the tendons of Jason's hands and feet. Then, he used healing magic to heal Jason's head to keep him alive. A ball of green light enveloped Jason's head. The skin and flesh on his face were gradually growing under the dark dead skin, and the burnt tissue in his head was also recovering. After about 20 minutes, although Jason was still not healed, he had woken up. Then, Ronan interrogated Jason and knocked him out. Jason had a high strength value, so he was a little worried about just cutting the tendons of his hands and feet, so he released the light of withering on Jason's limbs, causing some of his muscles to die. He then used the entanglement technique to entangle Jason. Then, he carried Jason up, cast the magnetic torrent, glided up, and took Jason to the mansion of the Wei Kingdom. After settling him down, he had an idea and returned to the wizard world. Cakesedan City, Hangliafang. Ronan walked in with Jason's changed appearance. He forced Jason to tell him that Jason had 3 men waiting for Jason to come back. Ronan walked into the hall and saw Jason's 3 men. The 3 men also looked at Jason. "Sir, how is it?" One of them said. "Leave the city first. After drinking the transformation potion, even the structure of the throat will change." At this time, the voice that Ronan spoke was Jason's voice. After Ronan finished speaking, he walked out. Jason ordered, and the 3 men did not dare to say anything, so they followed him out. "Sir, you haven't paid yet." Ronan was about to walk to the door, and the owner of Hangliafang, or thin businessman wearing gold and silver, and with a small mustache on his chin, ran out and said. One of Jason's men threw a heavy bag to the businessman. With a snap, the bag hit the businessman's chest. The businessman immediately caught it. Then, Ronan and the other 4 walked out. Ronan walked in front, and Jason's 3 men followed behind, not daring to make a sound. After renting horses in the lower city, they rode towards the city gate. Ronan led them to a forest. Ronan, who was riding in front, thought to himself, "I wonder if I can take 3 people to the world of cultivation at the same time." When he took people or things to the world of cultivation, he knew that there was a limit to the things he could bring. However, this limit will increase as his cultivation level improves. Ronan used his spiritual sense to sense and confirm that there was no one around. Then he said, "Get off the horse, tie the horse to the tree, and then follow me." As he said that, he got off the horse and tied the reins to the tree trunk beside him. Jason's 3 men looked at each other, really confused. But they dared not disobey Jason's order, so they had to get off the horse, tie the reins, and follow Ronan. Ronan walked into the depths of the woods, turned around, stretched out his hand, and said to the 3 people, "Put your hands on my hands." The 3 people didn't know what Jason was going to do, but they just hesitated for a moment and did it. When the hands of the 3 people were overlapped on Ronan's hands, suddenly, the scene in front of the 3 people changed. Just as the 3 people were surprised, Ronan immediately condensed the wizard's hand and hit the back of the 3 people's heads fiercely. The 3 people were wizard apprentices below level 2, and they had never enhanced their physical bodies. They were unconscious after just 1 blow. Suddenly, 4 more bodies were lying in Ronan's house. Then, Ronan hurried back to the wizard world. He returned the horse and the deposit. He took the deserted road and walked back to his bungalow and immediately traveled back to the world of immortal cultivation. The 4 people on the ground were still not awake. He immediately squatted down and quickly searched on these people. He found a necklace on Jason's body. This necklace was Jason's storage magic device. The 3 men should not be able to afford the storage magic device, so they hid some valuable things close to their bodies, such as meditation methods, spell books, etc. However, these books were valuable things to the 3 people. But for Ronan, they were nothing. Ronan probed his spirit into Jason's storage magic device. Inside, there was a silver blue giant sword, a bag, and more than 20 medicine bottles. Ronan first took out the giant sword and analyzed it with Hanmeng. He knew that the magic conductivity of this giant sword was the best he had ever seen, even comparable to his Kingling sword. And its toughness was only slightly worse than his Kingling sword. What exactly is this sword made of? Ronan couldn't help but be curious. He used Hanmeng to analyze that there were 3 unknown metals used to make this sword. One of the metals accounted for a very small proportion. But when he saw the color of the sword, he couldn't help but think, could it be mithril? He had read in the books of the Kingdom Wizard Academy that weapons that were infused with mithril would have a mixed color of silver and light blue. Mithril and fine gold are metals with excellent magic conductivity and toughness in the wizard world. If I get it and melt it into the kindling sword, the power of the kindling sword will surely increase greatly. After a moment of thinking, Ronan treated Jason, who was fainting, and woke him up. When he was interrogated before, Jason was tortured very badly by Ronan. Seeing Ronan at this time, his strong body trembled involuntarily. Then, Ronan confirmed from Jason that the small amount of metal melted into the giant sword was mithril. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Superior Continent, Lightning Body Refining Method, Earth Sword Dance. After knowing the metal used to forge the giant sword, Ronan took back the giant sword and took out the small bag that Jason had hidden in the storage magic device. He opened the bag and saw 6 thumb-sized stones inside. The stone was black in color with faint colorful lines on it. Ronan summoned Hung Meng and analyzed that the stone had good magic conductivity. What is this? Ronan held the bag and asked the wounded Jason from above. This is a low-level magic stone, the currency of the Wizard Islands. Jason shrank on the ground and answered obediently. He was tortured by Ronan so much that he dared not hesitate for a moment when answering what he could. The currency of the Wizard Islands? Have you been to the Wizard Islands? Ronan asked, looking at the magic stone. At present, in his cognition, the Wizard Islands are almost a legendary place. Very few people have been to this island. The impression of the Wizard Islands from the mouths of the Kingdom Wizards is inseparable from mystery, blood, and cruelty. I haven't been there. Jason answered. Then how do you have a currency there? Ronan asked. It was left by our ancestors. Jason answered. Suddenly, Ronan recalled the history of the Kingdom of Valant that he had seen in the library of the Academy. The Fleming family was not among the families that established the kingdom. It is said that this family did not rise from the local area, but came from the Wizard Islands. Do you know why your ancestors came from the Wizard Islands? Ronan asked. Jason answered, because our family was defeated in the battle with the school, they left the Wizard Islands and came here. Are the resources of the Wizard Islands richer than those of the Dawn Continent? Ronan asked again. Jason nodded. Yes, I heard that the mines, magic potions, sea beasts of the Wizard Islands are not comparable to those of the Dawn Continent. Then your family came here because of the shortage of resources. Does your family have any plans to go back? Ronan asked. Jason shook his head. Although the resources of the Dawn Continent are not as good as those of the Wizard Islands, they are not bad among all the continents in this world. The wizards of the Wizard Islands divided the various continents of this world into superior continents, medium continents and inferior continents according to the amount of resources. The Dawn Continent belongs to the superior continent category. Ronan thought for a while, looked at the magic stone again, and asked, then what do you do with the magic stone? Can you use it? Jason said, some high-level resources of the Kingdom of Valant also use magic stones as trading currency. Moreover, from time to time, wizards from the Wizard Islands will travel to the Dawn Continent. With magic stones, you can trade some knowledge and items with them. After asking, Ronan put the small bag of magic stones into his storage magic device. Then, he took out the medicine bottles in Jason's storage magic device and analyzed them one by one. Knowing that the potions in these medicine bottles, except for the intermediate transformation potion, are all recovery potions commonly used by wizards. After asking questions, Ronan trapped Jason in the basement. This wizard with a strong body was undoubtedly a good experimental subject for him. Moreover, Jason still had a lot of knowledge in his mind, which he wanted to slowly acquire later. He knew that Jason had a strong body and his injuries would heal quickly. If Jason's injuries were healed, the shackles in the basement would not be able to trap him at all. So, he decided to cast the withering light on him every now and then to keep Jason's injuries to the point where he could not escape. After dealing with Jason, Ronan began to deal with Jason's 3 subordinates. The 3 subordinates were all low-level wizard apprentices, and after some questioning, he found that the knowledge they possessed was really shallow. and these 3 people were not worth being experimental subjects. So Ronan ended the lives of the 3 people. He took the bodies to the woods and burned them to ashes with the Samadhi true fire. In the next few days, Ronan often came to the basement of Weniguo's mansion and asked about the knowledge Jason had. After asking, he knew that Jason was an elemental body refining wizard. The method of body refining is the Fleming family's thunder body refining method. Manipulate lightning to stimulate the body and then achieve the purpose of increasing physical strength. This method is about 70% similar to the energy particle amplification method that Ronan saw in the Kingdom Wizard Academy. After all, both methods belong to elemental body refining methods. Ronan thought that, if he would refine his body in the future, this thunder body refining method would be a supplement to the energy particle amplification method. In addition to the thunder body refining method, Ronan also knew several thunder witchcrafts. They are defense witchcraft, the first level superior thunder element energy particle shield acceleration witchcraft, the first level superior primary thunder element muscle activation method, and attack witchcraft, the first level superior thunder enchantment, and the second level medium intermediate thunderstorm. He heard Jason say that Jason's attack method is mainly based on the giant sword, supplemented by thunder witchcraft. Thunder witchcraft is all to cooperate with his giant sword attack. The swordsmanship that Jason mastered was called Earth Sword Dance. He spent a lot of magic stones to buy it from a body refining wizard who passed by the southeast province. Earth Sword Dance is a swordsmanship dedicated to giant swords. When wielding it, it has a heavy feeling. After trapping Jason for several days, Jason suddenly said to Ronan, because of nervousness and fear, his voice trembled and stuttered, You can let me go. The family knows that I'm here to find you. If you don't let me go, the family will send someone to deal with you. Ronan listened and smiled. Then, before you leave, what do you think of my strength? Jason was stunned when he heard this. These days, he was tortured by Ronan from time to time, shrouded in Ronan's fear, and got used to Ronan being a very powerful existence. At this time, he suddenly remembered that before he met Ronan, he thought this person was just a first-level wizard apprentice. After all, the information obtained by his family members through investigation was that Ronan was just a failed apprentice of the Kingdom Wizard Academy. Seeing Jason's expression, Ronan knew what Jason was thinking. You are a formal wizard. Even if you are missing, your family will probably not think that it was done by a low-level wizard apprentice like me. Besides, you came from the southeast province and crossed half of the kingdom. Who knows if something happened to you on the way? No matter how they guess, it is difficult to guess that it was me. Jason had these thoughts in his mind. When he heard Ronan point them out, he felt desperate. Ronan immediately ignored Jason, who was in despair, and closed the door of Jason's cell. He went to the market, bought some food, and fed it to the other experimental subjects. Chapter 117. Cross-border transplantation of the natal immortal tree. After Ronan returned to the bungalow in the wizard world, he couldn't help but think. The disappearance of the young master of the Fleming family was a big deal for the family. Although the Fleming family was unlikely to guess that he was the one who did it, but he had to be on guard. He couldn't say for sure whether the Fleming family would come to him if they failed to find out after a long investigation. First it was a third-level wizard apprentice, and this time it was a first-level formal wizard. If a more powerful wizard from the Fleming family came to find him, he would have to run away. In fact, now he has the ability to travel through different worlds at any time, as well as transformation potions, so his ability to run away is not weak. What he was worried about was the life tree planted in the bungalow. In fact, the destruction of the life tree had little impact on him. After all, his extended life and King Mu's spirit body were, because the life tree fed back to him the refined spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which changed his physique. This change is permanent. Even if the life tree is destroyed, his lifespan will not be reduced, and the King Mu's spirit body will still exist. The only impact of the destruction of the natal immortal tree on him was that he had to spend time to cultivate the natal immortal tree again. He cultivated the mother tree of the natal immortal tree to 100 years old, and the sapling of the natal immortal tree to several decades old. It really took him a lot of time and energy. In the past year, He almost every day made growth promoting potions and performed growth promoting witchcraft to cultivate the natal immortal tree to such an extent. I wonder if I can bring the natal immortal tree to the world of cultivation. When the natal immortal tree was still young, the tree was not big, and he knew that it was absolutely possible. However, the mother tree of the natal immortal tree has now grown into a big tree more than 6 meters tall, and the sapling is taller than it, with lush branches and leaves. He is not sure whether he can bring 2 natal immortal trees to the world of cultivation. It's time to try. Thinking of this, Ronan traveled to the world of cultivation. He had to find a planting site for the mother and sapling of the natal immortal tree in the world of cultivation. He showed up in the Welly residence. If I bring the natal immortal tree here, it's better to plant it in the secular world, Ronan thought. The mother tree of the natal immortal tree is not only growing abnormally strong now, but also absorbs a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth at a fast speed. If it is brought to the immortal realm of the Huanzan sect, it is estimated that, as soon as it lands, it will generate a spiritual energy vortex, thus attracting the attention of other cultivators. I just don't know if the natal immortal tree can grow in the secular world with thin spiritual energy, Ronan thought while performing the magnetic torrent, releasing the anti-geomagnetic force, and flew in the sky. The wasteland, the city, the river and the forest passed by him one after another. He looked down at the earth, and after a while, he took a fancy to a remote barren mountain and old forest. Let's try to see if the natal immortal tree can be planted here. Ronan threw it into the woods. After a while, he landed in the woods. Then, he traveled back to the bungalow in the wizard world. In the wizarding world, in the botanical garden, under the tree of immortality, Ronan appeared. He first tried to travel with the mother tree of the immortal tree. Before, when he traveled with things, he touched the things with his hands, thought about traveling, and traveled. So, he put his hand on the trunk of the mother tree of the immortal tree, thinking about traveling. But this time, a strange feeling came to his heart. Before, when he traveled with other things, he felt a sense of weight. But when he touched the mother tree of the immortal tree with his hand, and tried to travel, he didn't feel any weight at all. It was as if the mother tree of the immortal tree was a part of his body. As long as he wanted, the immortal tree could travel with him. Both immortal trees were like this. Immediately, Ronan quickly touched the sapling of the immortal tree with his hand, and his heart moved. The next moment, his figure appeared in the barren mountains and old forests of the secular world of the immortal world. Appearing with him, there were 2 immortal trees, one large and one small. The 2 natal immortal trees had well-developed root systems, like a dense net, with the soil of the wizarding world on them. Crash! The 2 big trees fell to the ground, stirring up dust all over the sky. Ronan immediately used the fast growth technique to help the 2 natal immortal trees take root in the forest. Suddenly, 2 green beams of light hit the 2 natal immortal trees respectively. The roots of the 2 natal immortal trees drilled into the ground like snakes. Then, they spread underground. A rustling sound came from underground. On weekdays, the 2 natal immortal trees mainly rely on refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to grow themselves. But now, because the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the secular world is extremely thin, the 2 natal immortal trees can only absorb a little bit of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, which can't make them grow at all, and even survival is difficult. Therefore, they can only absorb nutrients for survival from the soil through the growth of tree roots. After a while, the roots of the 2 natal immortal trees were still spreading underground. At this time, the roots were not deep enough, and the nutrients absorbed by the roots were still not enough to keep the 2 natal immortal trees alive. The roots continued to spread and reach the roots of other trees. The nutrients in the soil, where those trees were located, were all absorbed by the 2 natal immortal trees. Ronan sensed this situation and thought to himself that, if the 2 natal immortal trees grew longer, the trees in this forest would wither due to lack of nutrients for a long time. After a while, the roots of the natal immortal tree stopped spreading. After about a moment, the growth of the roots of the natal immortal tree mother tree also gradually stopped. At this time, the nutrients absorbed by the roots of the 2 natal immortal trees were just enough to keep themselves alive. Because the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is thin nearby, the natal immortal trees cannot refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and feed it back to me. I can't receive the refined spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and the cultivation of Yamudamakaya is stagnant. Moreover, if the two natal immortal trees are planted here, it won't take long before the soil loses nutrients and turns into desert. Ronan's thoughts raced. But no matter what, at least the natal immortal trees can be brought from the wizard world to the immortal world. Ronan thought. If he wanted to run away, he would still ensure the safety of the two natal immortal trees. Then, Ronan touched the two natal immortal trees with his hand, and his heart moved. The next moment, he and the trees traveled back to the bungalow in the wizard world. After returning to the wizard world, the root systems of the two natal immortal trees have developed a lot. Ronan immediately used the fast growth technique to help the two trees take root in the wizard world again. Because of the help of energy particles, the fast growth technique was much more powerful. Soon, the roots of the trees drilled into the ground. Chapter 118 The Golden Marrow Pill is complete. In the laboratory, Ronan was melting the mithril into his kindling sword. Now, this laboratory not only needs to refine medicine and elixirs, but also needs to be used to refine instruments. Its area is no longer enough. So, these days, Ronan bought magic guiding, or from the black market, carved, extended magic patterns on it, and integrated it into the walls and ceiling of the laboratory. The laboratory, which was originally only 10 square meters, is now nearly 50 square meters. Ronan sat cross-legged on the ground, doing two things at once, reciting the treasure refining technique, while casting the Samadhi True Fire. At this time, the Samadhi True Fire did not spray out from his mouth, but from the palms of his hands. The giant sword obtained from Jason was suspended in front of him. The two Samadhi True Fires sprayed from the palms, and circled the giant sword. Using the treasure refining technique alone could not separate the mithril from the giant sword. So, he had to use the Samadhi True Fire in conjunction. He found that the Samadhi True Fire was also very useful when refining instruments. Under the power of the refining art and the Samadhi True Fire, the giant sword almost became a liquid object. The mithril shining with silver blue light separated from it. The giant sword without the mithril suddenly turned into a ball of iron. Ronan's mana moved away from the giant sword. The iron embryo fell to the ground. The iron embryo still exuded the high temperature of the Samadhi True Fire, and emitted white mist. Then, Ronan's heart moved. One of the kindling swords in his dantian suddenly went towards his meridians. The next moment, it flew out, and hung in front of him. This kindling sword was made of 1000-year-old kindling kyan, and was Ronan's most powerful one. He was still reciting the refining art, and releasing the Samadhi True Fire with both hands. Concentrating his mind, he merged the mithril into the kindling sword. Immediately, he used the power of the refining art and the two Samadhi True Fires to surround the kindling sword. Suddenly, the tough kindling sword began to melt gradually under the effect of the two spells, becoming a soft mass. The mithril also melted slightly under the effect of the spell, and gradually melted into the kindling sword. Next, Ronan patiently cast a spell to slowly and completely melt the mithril into the kindling sword. Time passed, and after almost half a day, the mithril finally melted into the kindling sword. At this time, the kindling sword, which had been melted with mithril, almost lost its green color like bamboo. It showed a simple bronze color, like an ancient sword obtained from the ruins of an ancient monk. After reforging, the sharp magic patterns, armor-breaking magic patterns, law-breaking magic patterns, and other magic patterns on the kindling sword disappeared. However, Ronan's magic patterns have all been improved, and it is time to recarve on the kindling sword. So Ronan continued to recite the treasure refining technique, and his hands were still releasing the Samadhi True Fire to soften the surface of the kindling sword. Then, he used his spirit to draw the Zhengjin key in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, turning it into a tiny blade, and carved the magic pattern on the kindling sword. Ronan had been sitting cross-legged, almost motionless, just concentrating on carving the magic pattern. After more than 3 hours, he finally carved the magic pattern on the blade of the kindling sword again. The bronze-colored kindling sword also had magic patterns like cloud patterns on it, making it look even heavier. After carving the magic pattern, Ronan retracted the spell. The magic power of the refining treasure art suddenly dissipated at the kindling sword. The two Samadhi True Fires emitting a faint glow were also retracted into his meridians. Then, He waved his hand, and the kindling sword flew back, and was grabbed by him. The kindling sword, which was integrated with mithril, was indeed much heavier in his hand. This weight was quite difficult even for the Silver Knight to lift. However, with his current strength, this weight was nothing. He took the sword in his hand, and waved it a few times, and suddenly he was full of vigor. After waving it a few more times, he threw the sword upwards, and made a sword gesture. The kindling sword immediately turned into a green spiritual light, which suddenly sank into his palm, flew into the meridians, and went to his dantian. After strengthening the kindling sword, Ronan still sat cross-legged. He waved his hand, and performed the elementary wind control technique. As the energy particles gathered, a gust of wind was generated from under the alchemy furnace, lifting the alchemy furnace, and sending it to him. Begin to make the alchemy. Ronan took out the alchemy materials that he had prepared before, and used the wizard's hand to throw them into the alchemy furnace one by one. Then, he opened his mouth, and a stream of samadhi true fire spurted out from his mouth and nose, crashing into the bottom of the alchemy furnace. Before he knew it, a month had passed. Nothing happened in Triumph City. Ronan lived a peaceful life of making alchemy, practicing, and accelerating growth. It was so peaceful that he felt that time passed very quickly. On this day, he sat cross-legged in the laboratory and made the elixir as usual. Samadhi true fire spewed out from his mouth and nose, rolling towards the elixir furnace. Then, he added medicinal materials and water. He summoned Hang Meng to analyze the state of the medicinal materials and the heating of the elixir furnace. Data and information kept emerging in his mind. He concentrated and adjusted the intensity and burning position of Samadhi true fire according to these data and information. After more than 2 hours, a refreshing fragrance floated out of the elixir furnace. The elixir is done. At this moment, Ronan suddenly felt something in his heart. He gave Hang Meng an order to analyze himself. Golden marrow pill. Perfect. This elixir has finally been refined to perfection for me. Ronan thought, and immediately used the wizard's hand to open the lid of the extremely hot elixir furnace. He took out the golden marrow pill from it. Now that his proficiency has reached perfection, he can refine 7 golden marrow pills in one furnace. If he changes to a better elixir furnace, he can refine more golden marrow pills. The golden marrow pill is a pill for cultivators above the 6th level of key refining. The perfect golden marrow pill has a good effect even on cultivators at the 12th level of key refining. Ronan thought as he took out 2 porcelain bottles. One porcelain bottle contained 6 golden marrow pills. The other porcelain bottle contained 1 golden marrow pill. He planned to go to the Return to the True Immortal realm and sell this golden marrow pill to the Song family's treasure house. This would attract the attention of the Song family, the first family in the East District of the mansion. In this way, he could enter the Song family as an alchemist and inquire about the recipe for the foundation building pill. With this in mind, Ronan put the 2 bottles of golden marrow pill into his storage black ring. With a thought in his mind, his figure appeared in the Welly State Mansion in the world of cultivation. He changed into a light blue robe from the world of cultivation, gathered his hair up, tied a bun, and inserted an ebony hairpin. Then he left the mansion, performed the magnetic torrent, and flew towards the Return to the True Immortal realm. When he reached the forest outside the Huans and Sex fairyland, he walked into the thick fog and took out the Liu family jade pendant. Suddenly, the thick fog parted to the left and right, leaving a path for him. He followed this path and walked into the Huans and Sex fairyland. Chapter 119 Alchemy Prodigy. In the east area of the mansion, Jubeo building, Ronan and Shizi sat across the tea table from each other. 2 teacups were filled with clear spiritual tea. The hot air with the fragrance of tea floated out from the teacups. Shizi pulled out the cork of the porcelain bottle given by Ronan with her slender white fingers. Suddenly, a fragrance that was stronger than the fragrance of tea filled the air. Shizi had a good ability to identify elixirs. Smelling this fragrance, and seeing the elixir pattern on the golden marrow pill in the bottle, she knew that this golden marrow pill was of excellent quality. Did you make this elixir? Shizi looked at Ronan and asked. Yes. Ronan nodded. Name a price. 2 medium-grade spiritual stones. Shizi said. Then, she said, I wonder if you are interested in coming to the Song family to be an alchemist. Ronan's heart moved, and he felt that he had taken another step towards his goal. But on the surface, he looked calm. "What's the benefit to me?" Shizzy said. "You can get 5 medium grade spirit stones as a minimum per month, and you can also get 20% of the refined pills." Ronan shook his head. "This 5 medium grade spirit stones as a minimum and 20% of the pills are too little. I sold this golden marrow pill and got 2 medium grade spirit stones." Shizzy smiled. "Wow, it's not calculated like this. I guess it's quite difficult for you to get the materials for refining golden marrow pill. And as a casual cultivator, the materials for alchemy are not always available. In the Song family, there are plenty of materials for alchemy. Dao can use them without worry. The Song family will even allow Dao to use some materials for practice. I'll think about it." After saying this, Ronan said goodbye and walked out of the Jubeo building. In the next few days, Ronan went to several business houses opened by immortal cultivation families, showing off his alchemy skills and asking about the treatment of alchemists in each family. He suddenly showed a high level of alchemy and went to Jubeo Tower. The Song family asked him to be an alchemist, and he agreed without hesitation. This was so easy that it might arouse the suspicion of the Song family. After all, as the first Zeuxan family in the East District of the mansion, there were countless Zeuxan families who wanted to defeat it. The Song family had to be cautious and guard against spies infiltrating the family. Ronan asked for prices everywhere to dispel the doubts of the Song family. Let them know that this person really wanted to join the Zeuxan family. Ronan walked to the East District of the mansion and went to the North District of the mansion. As Ronan expected, soon, the news that an alchemist wanted to join the family spread in the East and North Districts of the mansion. The Song family also had an intelligence army in the immortal realm of Huan's insect. This news naturally reached the ears of the Song family. One day, when Ronan came out of a business in the North District of the mansion, he saw a man in his 40s wearing a cloud robe walking towards him. He used Hangmeng to analyze this person and found out that this person was a cultivator of the 11th level of key refining. "It's a pleasure to meet you, fellow Taoist. I'm Songaeoshin of the Song family in the East District of my residence." Songaeoshin bowed to Ronan. Ronan returned the greeting. "I wonder what you are looking for me for." "Shizzy, the steward of the Song family, once mentioned you, saying that you are a genius in alchemy. On behalf of the Song family, I would like to invite you to the Song family as a guest alchemist for 1 month, with a guaranteed reward of 7 medium grade spirit stones, and the profit share of the elixir remains unchanged." Songaeoshin said that he had asked someone to inquire about the price offered to Ronan by other families, and knew that no other family offered a higher price than this. After listening to Shizzy's introduction, the people of the Song family had actually been keeping an eye on Ronan these days, and they were determined to get him. After all, a talented alchemist was too rare. The Song family currently has abundant resources for cultivating immortals, and is fully capable of training Ronan to become an extremely powerful alchemist. In the long run, he will refine elixirs for their family and train subsequent alchemy talents. Dao, our Tang family promises to give you a minimum of 9 medium grade spirit stones a month. Songaeoshin and Ronan were talking when a voice suddenly came from behind Ronan. It was the steward of the Tang family in the North District of the mansion, who came out of the business and spoke loudly. Songaeoshin glared at the steward of the Tang family coldly, but his expression quickly returned to peace, and he said to Ronan, "Dao, I can promise to give you a minimum of 10 medium grade spirit stones a month, and you can get 30% of the elixirs." The steward of the Tang family narrowed his eyes when he heard this, and hurriedly called a servant to whisper in his ear. He had received an order from the Tang family to keep Ronan. So when Ronan walked out of the business, he kept an eye on him. Just now, Songaeoshin found Ronan and offered a price. He was afraid that Ronan would follow the Song family, so he immediately offered a price. This price was not decided by him, but was instructed by the Tang family. Now, Songaeoshin offered a higher price. The steward of the Tang family could not decide whether to offer a higher price, so he called a servant to inform the Tang family quickly. Seeing that the steward of the Tang family could not offer a higher price, Songaeoshin could not help but sneer in his heart, and then said to Ronan, "Dao, I guess this price is much higher than other families." We, the Song family, sincerely invite you. Moreover, our Song family is in its heyday. Even if we look at the entire Huanshan sect immortal realm, it is also a very powerful family. Daoyao, you have the protection of our Song family. In the future, you only need to practice and refine pills with peace of mind. Moreover, the materials for refining pills will never be lacking. Ronan looked to the side, as if thinking. After a while, as if after some careful consideration, Ronan bowed to Songaeoshan. Then I will be grateful for your care in the future. Songaeoshan was overjoyed when he heard this. It is an honor for the Song family that you can enter the Song family. As he said this, he made a gesture of invitation and left with Ronan. By the way, I heard from Shizi that you only appeared in Jubeo Tower a few times, but I don't know your name. Songaeoshan said. Ronan said. Songaeoshan nodded. In fact, when the news that Ronan wanted to enter the Zeuxan family spread and Shizi told the family about this person, the Song family had already investigated Ronan's information. They learned about Ronan's information in the shanty town from Lin Shan, Ronan's old friend, who was the manager of several spiritual fields in the shanty town. When they learned that Ronan had only practiced for more than a year and had such a high level of alchemy, they wanted to introduce Ronan into the family. As for the relationship between Ronan and the great foundation building master Luo of the Huanshan sect, Lin Shan also told the family. But the Song family not only has a family member who is an outer disciple of the Huanshan sect. Moreover, there is a late-stage foundation building master in the Huanshan sect who is also a distant relative of the Song family. So, they inquired through various channels and found that the great foundation building master Luo of the Huanshan sect had not recognized any descendants recently. Chapter 120, The Rules of the Immortal Cultivation Family. With Songaeoshan leading the way, Ronan was soon arranged in a spacious mansion. The mansion was not far from the center of the east area of the mansion, but it was very quiet. There was a courtyard in the mansion, where some spiritual plants were planted. There was also an alchemy room, in which there was an alchemy furnace prepared by the Song family. This alchemy furnace was made of a kind of black iron material, almost as tall as a person. Ronan used Hangmeng to analyze the metal of the alchemy furnace, and knew that its quality was much better than his own. On the walls of the mansion, there was a talisman called Forbidden Talisman. According to Songaeoshan, this forbidden talisman can isolate the spiritual consciousness of the cultivators in the key refining period from probing. After all, every cultivator does not want others to explore his trump card and secrets. This forbidden talisman can be said to be a common talisman for cultivators in the late stage of key refining. In addition, in the mansion, the Song family also assigned Ronan 3 maids. Whether it is cooking, washing clothes, changing clothes, bathing, and so on, you can ask the maids to do it. The 3 maids were all virgins, with beautiful faces and gentle looks. Ronan summoned Hangmeng and immediately learned that the 3 maids were all in the early stage of key refining. Then Master Luo will rest here for a few days. After Songaeoshan took Ronan around the mansion, he said, later, the Song family will send someone to deliver medicinal materials and pill recipes for Master to make pills. Ronan nodded and said goodbye to Songaeoshan. Afterwards, he walked around the mansion again. Whether it was the room or the pill room, he released his spiritual sense and explored. He found that his spiritual sense could not penetrate at all. It seems that the effect of the forbidden talisman is really good. The east area of the mansion, the Song family mansion, the hall. Song Yangshan, the head of the Song family, was sitting on a sourwood branch chair, holding a teacup with a blue cloud pattern in his hand, stirring the tea leaves with the tea cover. He looked about 50 years old. He looked majestic, with a long beard down to his neck, and his temples were slightly grey. He is a cultivator at the peak of the 12th level of key refining, and he reached this level 20 years ago. Later, he tried to break through several times, but he was unable to break through the foundation building stage. At this time, sitting on the other side of the tea table was his cousin Songbo. Brother Shan, I think the new alchemist is really strange. Songbo said to Song Yangshan, his origins are unknown. He only came to the return to the true sect immortal realm more than a year ago, and it only took him more than a year to improve his alchemy skills to such a level. I always feel that this person was deliberately arranged to our family. Even, this person is from another sect in the immortal realm, and came here to get close to the return to the true sect. Song Yangshan listened, took a sip of tea, and said slowly, this is just a guess. Maybe this person really has no problem. Let him refine the pill first. If there is really a problem, it will be exposed after a long time. Hearing Song Yangshan's words, Songbo could no longer talk about this matter, and turned to talk about other things. After talking with Song Yangshan for a while, Songbo left the hall, went out of the Song family mansion, walked on the street for a while, and then turned into an alley. After walking in the alley for a while, he arrived in front of a house, and then he made a gesture, and flicked his finger. Suddenly, a yellow light drew an arc in the air, and fell into the house. Not long after, the side door of the house opened. The person who opened the door was a man who looked nearly 60 years old, dressed as a Taoist priest, with 3 long beards. Master Jen. Songbo greeted and walked in. Fellow Taoist Song. The old Taoist called Master Jen also returned the greeting. Master Jen invited Songbo into the house, sat him down at the tea table, poured him a cup of spiritual tea, and asked, fellow Taoist Song, how is that? Songbo took a sip of the spiritual tea and said, I told my brother that the alchemist entered the family with something strange, but he didn't do anything, and planned to keep him in the family. Master Jen frowned after hearing this. Master Jen, my. Songbo looked at Master Jen. Oh, I forgot. Master Jen apologized, and took out a delicate small porcelain bottle from his storage bag, and handed it to Songbo. Songbo happily took it, and pulled out the cork of the porcelain bottle. Suddenly, a burst of elixir fragrance filled the air. Thank you, Master Jen. The new alchemist's alchemy level is certainly not as good as Master Jen's, and he is very likely a spy from other forces. I will definitely mention this to my brothers. Songbo thanked Master Jen again, and left with satisfaction. After Master Jen sent Songbo away, he closed the door and his eyes suddenly became sinister. His name is Jekyan, the chief alchemist hired by the Song family. The foundation building pills of the Song family in recent years were also refined by him. Although his success rate in refining the foundation building pill is less than 20%, his success rate is not low among all the alchemists. Since he heard that the Song family hired a young alchemist, and that the alchemist only took more than a year to refine the excellent quality of the golden marrow pill, an unprecedented sense of crisis suddenly emerged in his heart. He was really afraid that when this young alchemist grew up and reached his level of alchemy, by then, the young alchemist would receive a lower monthly guaranteed spiritual stone than him, and he would be more diligent than him when refining pills. Who knows, the Song family might kick him out. Moreover, he also knows the recipe of the foundation building pill. In order to prevent the recipe from being spread, the Song family might even kill him. Therefore, he must do something. For example, he joined forces with Songbo, grasped the unknown background of the new alchemist, and made some articles to make the head of the family Song Yangshan feel cautious. However, it seems that Song Yangshan will not take any action for such an unfounded matter. Ronan, there are so many immortal cultivation families in the mansion area. Why do you have to come to the Song family? Jekyan murmured, with a hint of cruelty in his eyes. East district of the mansion, Ronan's mansion. After 5 days of rest, a member of the Song family finally came to the door and sent Ronan the recipe and medicinal materials. The recipe is a kind of elixir called Zuaniuan pill. One of his mates said that this elixir is a first-class top-grade elixir, which ranks at the top among the elixirs for cultivation in the key refining period, and is also a cultivation elixir commonly used by the Song family. There are a total of 50 portions of medicinal materials. The Song family member who sent the medicinal materials said that Ronan could use 20 of them to practice. Whether Ronan failed or succeeded in these 10 portions of medicinal materials, the Song family would not ask. Ronan can keep the refined elixir himself, but the remaining 30 portions of medicinal materials must be handled according to the rules of the Song family. If these medicinal materials fail to be refined, the Song family will see the dregs. If successful, the Song family will see the pills. The Song family will take 70% of the pills, and 30% will be left to Ronan. Some alchemists will deliberately lower their success rate in order to keep the extra pills. Therefore, the Song family established this rule. Chapter 121, Putting the blame on others. Before he knew the rules of the Song family, Ronan did intend to steal the pills. Taking a pill for a long time will develop drug resistance. Even if his Jinsu pill is perfect, the effect will become less and less if he takes it for a long time. With the help of AI Hongmeng, his success rate in refining pills is extremely high. Too high a success rate will definitely bring him trouble. Therefore, he had already made up his mind to conceal the success rate and steal some pills. But he never thought that the Song family had such a rule. However, fortunately, I can still get 30% of the pills. I can still rely on refining pills to accumulate some pills for my own use. With the pill formula and medicinal materials, Ronan immediately walked into the pill room and started to refine the pill. The three maids, Yao Yu, Dan Hong and Cheng Xiang, all tactfully stayed away from the pill room, allowing Ronan to refine the pill quietly. Ronan closed the door of the pill room and felt a sudden silence, as if he was isolated from the world. After more than half a day, he used up 10 portions of medicinal materials and refined 10 Zuanian pills. Zuanian pill, 96% for beginners. With the assistance of AI Hongmeng, his success rate in refining pills is 100%. After putting 10 Zuanian pills into the storage magic device, he walked out of the alchemy room. Because the alchemy room is almost closed and illuminated by the night pearl, it is difficult to distinguish day from night inside. After he walked out of the alchemy room, he found that it was already dark. Three maids were standing about 300 meters outside the door of the alchemy room, waiting for him. Young master is out. Yao Yu was the first to see Ronan and called out hurriedly. The three maids came forward. Young master, it's late now. Please have dinner. Dan Hong said to Ronan. Ronan nodded and followed the three maids to the dining room. There were 4 dishes and a soup on the table, which were delicious. Ronan was eating with 3 maids serving him. Suddenly, he asked the 3 maids, "Do you know how many percentage of medicinal materials the Song family's alchemists need to succeed in refining Zuanio and Dan?" Cheng Xiang said, "I don't know about other alchemists in the family, but I heard that Master Je can successfully refine Zuanio and Dan with 50% of the medicinal materials. Other alchemists in the family are far inferior to him. 50%. Master Je's success rate is too low." Ronan thought to himself, so he would have to control the success rate to more than 40%, which would waste a lot of medicinal materials. In the next few days, Ronan was locked in the alchemy room during the day to refine pills. But his speed of refining pills was faster than that of alchemists of the same level. So, after refining the pills for the day, he returned to the wizard world and practiced in the wizard world. When he thought it was almost time for dinner, he returned to the immortal world. After all, although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the mansion area is more abundant than that in the shanty town, it is still not as good as that in the wizard world. Soon, 10 days passed, which was the time that the Song family had agreed with him to pick up the medicine. After the Song family came, Ronan presented the refined pills and the dregs to the Song family. The Song family looked at it and couldn't help but brighten up and exclaimed, "Master Reluo is so amazing. More than 40% of the medicinal materials have been refined into Zuanian pills. It's simply..." After saying the latter, the Song family member immediately shut up. He wanted to say that it was even more amazing than Master Jen at this age. But he knew that the mouth was the source of trouble. Moreover, there were 3 maids around, and he didn't know when his words would be spread. So he held back. According to the agreement, he left 30% of the Zuanian pills to Ronan and took away 70% of the Zuanian pills in the dregs. Afterwards, he arranged for his followers to transport the new 50 medicinal materials to Ronan's alchemy room and then left. Ronan's Zuanian pill passed through many hands. Finally, it was sent to the mansion of a branch of the Song family. This branch had a Song family member named Song Yang. At the age of 19, his cultivation had reached the 4th level of key refining. He was at the top of the younger generation of the Song family. In his heart, he felt that he was the best of the younger generation of the Song family. After all, he was just a member of a branch, and his cultivation resources were naturally not as good as those of the main family. As long as I have enough cultivation resources, I can become the best of the Song family in the future and turn my branch into the main family of the Song family. That day, when he was preparing to practice, he took out a delicate small porcelain bottle. He poured out a Zuanian pill and swallowed it. Then, he sat cross-legged in the quiet room and began to practice. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered from all around him and entered his meridians. After several rounds of circulation, it turned into magic power and flowed into Danshan. At the beginning, everything was as usual. However, after about a moment, as the drug became stronger and stronger, he found that a sense of irritability was rising in his heart. Gradually, the magic power in the meridians moved faster and faster. Just as he was alert, he quickly stopped the practice and slowly returned the magic power to the Danshan. However, he never thought that his magic power would move rapidly against the meridians. Finally, the magic power was like a flood, flowing back from his governor vessel and hitting his brain. A small muffled sound came from his head. At the same time, he opened his eyes. The whites of his eyes were congested, and 2 streams of blood spurted out of his nostrils. He fell forward from his cross-legged position to the ground. Blood was still flowing from his nostrils, and the blood on the ground was getting more and more. After more than half a day, his family saw that he had not come out of the quiet room, and they had not heard that he was going to retreat, so they hurriedly called him outside. But after calling for a while, no one answered. So, his family immediately called people to come and cast a spell together, breaking open the stone door of the quiet room that could only be opened from the inside, and entered the quiet room. In the sunlight outside, they immediately found Song Yang lying on the ground. There was a large pool of nearly dried blood next to the ground, where Song Yang's head was. Song Yang's family was shocked and hurried to help Song Yang up. Song Yang's face was as pale as paper, his eyes were bloodshot, and he stared at the front with a terrifying look. Song Yang's family injected a magic power into Song Yang's body, and found that Song Yang was dead. So, the Song family branch was in chaos. For a while, people who were crying, preparing for the funeral, and investigating the cause of death all came here in a mess. 3 days later, because the cause of death had not been found out, Song Yang's body could not be put into the coffin, but could only be covered with a white cloth and placed on a long table. Son, if I knew who harmed you, I would definitely avenge you. Song Yang's biological mother was still crying beside him. How could anyone harm him? Maybe he died of his inner demons. Song Yang's aunt whispered beside him. It must be you who harmed him. You are jealous of my dangerous talent. Song Yang's biological mother was furious after hearing the cold words just now, and was about to rush over to fight. The cause of death has been revealed. Just as the two were about to fight, one of Song Yang's uncles came over and said there was a problem with the pills that Danger had taken. One of the pills was a poison pill. Who is it? Who harmed my Danger? Song Yang's biological mother screamed. After investigation, the pill was made by the new alchemist, Ronan. Song Yang's uncle said. Chapter 122 Blood Escape Technique. A mansion in the East District of the mansion. Jekyll sat on a sourwood chair and brewed himself a pot of spiritual tea that he had collected for a long time. He leaned back in his chair and tasted the spiritual tea. He felt the bitter and fragrant spiritual tea enter his throat and stomach, and then a spiritual energy rose in his stomach, nourishing his meridians. Song Yang's death was planned by him, and he blamed it on Ronan. Ronan's Zuanian pill went through several hands from the time it was refined to the time it was delivered to Song Yang. He just bribed one of the servants who delivered the pills. He asked the servant to replace a bottle of Zuanian pill for Song Yang with the poison pill he refined. While he was tasting the spiritual tea, a servant ran in. Master, the head of the Song family is here to visit you. Jekyll was happily tasting tea, his old face full of enjoyment, but when he heard this, his eyes suddenly became sharp and his expression tense. Why did you come to me? Could it be? Jekyll's heart beat violently. He hurriedly recalled everything he had done, but there was nothing missing. Although, during this process, he had contact with Songbo of the Song family and the servant who delivered the medicine. However, if these two people were involved in something that harmed the family and were discovered by Song Yangshan, their fate would be even worse than his own. Therefore, these two people would never tell this matter no matter what. Maybe Song Yangshan came to me just because of other things. Jekyll comforted himself. put away his tense expression, and put on his usual relaxed and sanctimonious look. He stood up, shook the sleeves of his Taoist robe, and walked out with big strides. However, no matter how he pretended to be relaxed, the heart in his chest was still pounding. Although he thought he would not be exposed, he had also made the worst plan in his heart. So, he used his magic power, and planned to escape immediately, if he found something wrong. As an alchemist, his mental power was higher than that of the cultivators of the same level. When he walked out, his consciousness sensed that Song Yangshan was not only coming with a servant, but also with 5 cultivators who had reached the late stage of key refining. Sensing this situation, Jekan became even more nervous. His legs could not help but weaken slightly, and he almost couldn't maintain his cool image of walking with big strides. Haha, Master Song, how are you? I wonder what you want to see me for. When Jekan saw Song Yangshan and the cultivators he brought, he saw that these people looked aggressive, and his heart was even more panicked, but he still laughed out loud. While talking, he felt that the fluctuation of the mana on Song Yangshan's body suddenly rose. Suddenly, Jekan's mind was like a bolt from the blue. All the panic and anxiety in his heart broke out at the same time at this moment. He suddenly performed an escape method, and a huge force emerged around him, pushing him up. Song Yangshan didn't expect that Jekan would be so alert, and the flying sword he released actually stabbed into the air. Bang! Jekan crashed through the roof and flew out, and the tiles on the roof fell down. Set up the formation. Song Yangshan shouted as he drove the flying sword, and chased Jekan again. Suddenly, yellow light beams lit up outside Jekan's mansion. The light from the light beams condensed into barriers in the air, blocking Jekan's escape route. Song Yangshan and the 5 late-stage key refining cultivators he brought with him caught up. Jekan saw that, if he stayed here for a long time, he would die. He gritted his teeth, sacrificed a bright silver knife, and chopped it down on his left forearm. With a flash of the knife, his left forearm fell off, and blood gushed out from the cross-section of his arm. He immediately had an idea, and performed the blood transformation escape method. This escape method was exchanged from a cultivator when he went to other fairyland to buy medicinal materials. After exchanging this escape method, he has been practicing it in secret. When he was practicing, he never wanted to use this escape method, but he never thought that he would use it today, 10 years after he acquired the escape method. The blood spurting out of his arm suddenly turned into a bloody mist, which enveloped him. Suddenly, the mist accelerated abruptly, and with an overwhelming force, it broke through the yellow light barrier in the air, and fled into the distance. Song Yangshan and the 5 key refining monks also urged their magic power to chase after him. Jekan was a cultivator of the 12th level of key refining, and his escape speed was already fast. At this time, he used the blood transforming escape method by mutilating his body, and his escape speed was twice as fast. After a while, the bloody mist became a red dot on the horizon and quickly disappeared. Seeing that they could no longer catch up, Song Yangshan and others had to stop. What a pity, he was let go. Song Yangshan sighed in his heart. As the head of a large family, his spies in the family were simply more than 10 times that of Jekan. Since Ronan came, Jekan thought that he had done all the little tricks perfectly, but he knew all his moves clearly. When he knew that Jekan had found someone to exchange Song Yang's pills, he did not stop him. Because, after all, Song Yang was not from the main family of the Song family. He could not deny that Song Yang had good qualifications. But he also knew about Song Yang's domineering behavior from other spies. He knew that if the family gave Song Yang enough cultivation resources, when Song Yang became a foundation building person in the future, Song Yang would most likely kill all the main family members of the Song family. So, he let this matter develop. It would not only eliminate a disaster for his direct descendants, but also serve as a reason to eliminate the old guy Jekan. Jekan, the alchemist, came to the Song family when his father was the head of the family. Even though he became the head of the family, the old man always relied on his age every time he faced him. If it weren't for Jekan's good alchemy skills, he would have wanted to deal with this old man a long time ago. After he found out that Jekan and Songbo had hooked up, he was also waiting and watching. After all, at that time, he still needed this old man to refine pills for the family. However, when he heard from his subordinates that when Ronan refined Zuaniuandan for the first time, he refined more than 40% of the medicinal materials into pills. This alchemy skill is even better than Jekaian's 30 years ago. So, he finally made up his mind to eradicate Jekaian. Song Yangshan cast a spell and landed on the ground. He called a few clansmen and said in a voice transmission, "Send a few people to search for Jekaian's whereabouts and bring him back. If he is alive, he must be found. If he is dead, he must be found." The Huan's insect immortal realm has gone through thousands of years, and there are actually many immortal cultivation families. But why are there only a dozen of them at the top of the immortal cultivation families? It is because they have mastered the recipe of the foundation building pill, which makes it easier to cultivate foundation building cultivators. As a result, there will be foundation building cultivators and their families almost at any time. If Jekaian passed the foundation building pill recipe to some currently weak families, it would be very likely that these families would rise in the future. Also, send more people to be stationed around Ronan's residence and inform me of his movements every day. He did this because he didn't want Ronan to get into trouble and be harmed by other forces, and because he was afraid that Ronan would leave the Song family. After all, Ronan was the most promising alchemist in the Song family. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Foundation Building Pill Recipe. In the alchemy room, Ronan summoned his spirit, opened his mouth and nose, and a stream of samadhi true fire spurted out, heading towards the bottom of the alchemy furnace. As usual, he was refining today's Zuaniuan pill. He knew nothing about what happened in the Song family. After all, he stayed in the mansion all day and never left the house. He was not familiar with the Song family. Song Yangshan deliberately blocked the news of Song Yang's death. Even in the Song family, only a small number of people knew about it. Jekaian's mansion was far away from Ronan's mansion, and he could not sense what was happening. The Song family still sent people to deliver new medicinal materials every 10 days, and accepted his medicinal residues in pills. These days, Ronan was not only refining pills in the world of cultivating immortals. After returning to the wizard world, he also found alternative magic plants and magic beast materials for the Zuaniuan pill recipe, and worked hard to improve his proficiency in the Zuaniuan pill in the wizard world. His proficiency in the Zuaniuan pill has reached the master level. But the Zuaniuan pill he handed over to the Song family was only controlled at the proficient level. After all, if the level of alchemy improves too fast, it will arouse suspicion. In addition to alchemy, he has been taking the golden marrow pills he made before, and practicing the ancient wood longevity technique. After taking the pills, his practice speed has increased a lot. But the drug resistance of the golden marrow pills is becoming more and more obvious. Recently, he took the golden marrow pills like a child eating candy beans. He plans to start taking the Zuaniuan pills after taking the golden marrow pills for a period of time. He has saved a lot of Zuaniuan pills, enough for him to take for a while. The East District of the mansion of the Song family. In addition to practicing and arranging family affairs every day, Song Yangshan pays a lot of attention to Ronan. Because he has selected this alchemist as the alchemist to refine the family foundation pill in the future, he has been listening to his subordinates reporting on Ronan's progress in alchemy. When he heard that Ronan's success rate in refining the Zuaniuan pill has been rising, and the efficacy of the Zuaniuan pill is getting better and better, he was relieved. At the same time, he had been asking his men to block the news about Ronan, because this person's talent in alchemy would probably attract the attention of the foundation building master in Huan's insect. If the news about this person is released, it is inevitable that other immortal cultivation families will unite to compete for this person. However, he was very satisfied with his daily behavior. He sent people to ask the three maids in Ronan's mansion, and learned that this person stayed in the alchemy room every day except for sleeping and eating. Unlike the old man Jekaian, who was over 100 years old, he had to go to the wind and dust land to have fun almost every day. not only to the mansion area, but also to the shanty town. And sometimes, on a whim, he would reward a large amount of spirit stones and act very high profile. Thinking of this, he sent someone to call his cousin Song Liang. Because Song Bo colluded with outsiders and damaged the interests of the family, he had abolished most of his cultivation and exiled him to the mine. The mines in the fairyland of Huan's insect are all owned by Huan's insect, but each immortal cultivation family must send people to help manage them and get 20% of the ore. After Huan's insect conquered the immortal domain of Changsheng sect, the mine of Changsheng sect also needed to be managed by the immortal cultivation families in Huan's insect's immortal domain. Although there were already mine managers in the immortal domain of Changsheng sect, and its operation mode was roughly the same as that of Huan's insect's immortal domain, that is, it was managed by the immortal cultivation families. But when Huan's insect destroyed Changsheng sect, it also destroyed the immortal cultivation families in it. Because the immortal cultivation families in a fairy domain are all descendants of the immortal cultivation of the sect. If they were not destroyed, maybe after 1,000 years, a genius of immortal cultivation would emerge from the immortal cultivation families left behind, and after growing up, they would take revenge on Huan's insect. Maybe, after 1,000 years, the Huan's insect would follow the path of Changsheng sect. Under the order of Huan's insect, Song Yangshan had to arrange some family members and trick some casual cultivators in the shanty towns to go to the mine of Changsheng sect. Song Bo was among them. The mine that Song Bo was arranged to go to was on the edge of the former immortal domain of Changsheng sect, bordering the immortal domain of another sect. In the past, because of the ownership of resources, the Changsheng sect and that sect had been engaged in small wars all year round. Now, the Huan's insect has taken over the Changsheng sect's land, which means it has taken over the war with another sect. He arranged for Song Bo to go there and destroyed most of Song Bo's cultivation, which was actually equivalent to sentencing Song Bo to death. Unless Song Bo is very lucky, he can survive in that border mine where wars are constantly raging. Not long after, Song Yangshan's cousin Song Liang came forward and saluted Song Yangshan. "Brother, what do you want?" Song Liang said respectfully. "If Ronan's level of refining Zuanio and Dan reaches 80% of that of the old guy Jekhan, you will let me know." Song Yangshan ordered. After a pause, Song Yangshan said, "Also, I heard that some tribesmen recently visited Ronan on their own initiative, as if they wanted to establish a relationship with this alchemist. HMPH. Investigate which tribesmen did this and warn them. If anyone else wants to establish a relationship with this alchemist or wants to disturb this alchemist, tell me and I will enforce the family rules." Song Liang immediately responded with a yes, and took the order and retreated. He couldn't help but secretly feel lucky. Since he replaced Song Bo's position, the more he came into contact with Song Yangshan, the more he knew that Ronan, the alchemist, had great potential. He also thought about when he would go to Ronan's mansion in person to deliver medicine, so as to establish a relationship with this alchemist. If he needs anything in the future, he can ask this alchemist to help him refine the pill. Zuanian pill. Perfect. A month passed before he knew it. Because Ronan collected a lot of materials for Zuanian pill in the wizard world, after a lot of refining, he finally perfected Zuanian pill. In the world of cultivating immortals, he handed over several copies of the master re-level Zuanian pill. He also raised the apparent success rate of refining Zuanian pill to nearly 50%. On this day, 10 days had passed since the last time the Song family came to deliver medicine. As usual, the Song family came to his house, collecting pills and sending him medicinal materials. The person who came to his house this time was a Song family member he had never seen before. After this person introduced himself, he knew that this person was Song Yangshan's cousin, Song Liang. When Song Liang came here, he dismissed his men and Ronan's 3 maids. Then, he took out a piece of jade from his storage bag. With a mysterious look on his face, he transmitted to Ronan, "Master Luo, this jade pendant contains the recipe for the foundation pill. Among the medicinal materials I sent you today, there are 10 medicinal materials for refining the foundation pill." The head of the family said that these 10 medicinal materials are for you to practice, and I hope you can refine the foundation pill as soon as possible. Chapter 124. The foundation building pill is successful for the first time. After saying goodbye to Song Liang, Ronan entered the alchemy room and began to check the recipe for the foundation building pill. He really didn't expect that the Song family would give him the recipe for the foundation building pill so quickly. He probed his spiritual consciousness into the jade pendant. Suddenly, a series of words came into his mind. To refine the foundation building pill, 5 main herbs and 17 auxiliary herbs are needed. Among the 5 main herbs, 4 are medicinal herbs, medicinal flowers, and spiritual fruits, and the last one is the essence of monsters. The 5 main herbs are particularly difficult to collect. As far as Ronan knows, only the big immortal cultivation families and the Huans sect will plant these 5 main herbs and raise monsters. The 17 auxiliary herbs are much easier to collect than the main herbs, but some of them are particularly expensive. However, the Song family sent me 10 sets of medicinal materials. Ronan looked at the boxes of medicinal materials and was happy. Since these 10 sets of medicinal materials are all for me to practice, then the 10 foundation building pills refined will all be mine. Thinking of this, Ronan began to refine the foundation building pill. To refine the foundation building pill, many kinds of medicinal materials are needed, and the refining steps are also very complicated. According to the pill recipe, there are a total of 180 steps. Ronan thought, with so many steps, it is no wonder that the success rate of refining the foundation building pill is low. Because it is really difficult for alchemists in the key refining stage to concentrate and complete these 180 steps. Once a mistake is made, the whole furnace of pills will be wasted. Moreover, alchemists in the key refining stage rarely have enough mental power to accurately judge the state of the pill and the temperature of the pill furnace at each step. Start refining the pill. Ronan gathered his mind, condensed several wizard hands, and began to process the medicinal materials before refining the pill. Time passed slowly. Ronan was in the pill room, refining the steps of the foundation building pill in an orderly manner. He had already processed all the medicinal materials for refining the foundation building pill. At this time, he was sitting cross-legged next to the pill furnace. He opened his mouth and sprayed the samadhi true fire under the furnace. At the same time, he manipulated the wizard's hand to add clean water, medicinal materials and other things into the furnace one by one according to the recipe. He summoned Hang Meng and analyzed the status of the medicinal materials in the furnace. The data flow poured into his mind like a flood. To refine the foundation building pill, the drug status and temperature error that Ronan had to control were the smallest among the pills and potions he had refined. Therefore, once the data was transmitted, he had to react very quickly. This was his first time to refine the foundation building pill. He had no experience and had to concentrate. In the furnace, clean water and medicinal materials gradually transformed under high temperature. Time passed by minute. Before he knew it, the sky had turned from day to night. Ronan spent almost a day refining this foundation building pill. Even for lunch, he did not go out to eat. The 3 maids arranged by the Song family stood 300 meters outside the alchemy room waiting for him. Seeing that he didn't come out, one of the maids heated up the food several times. However, the food was no longer fresh, so the maid poured it out and made a new one. This ensured that, as soon as Ronan came out of the alchemy room, he would have fresh food to eat. Ronan concentrated on refining the elixir, not noticing the passage of time. After almost a day, the foundation building elixir was almost ready. His consciousness sensed that the medicinal materials in the elixir furnace were gathering into pills. Not long after, a fragrance floated out of the elixir furnace. It's done. Ronan's heart moved, and he immediately slowly retracted the samadhi true fire. Let the elixir furnace slowly cool down. After the samadhi true fire was completely retracted, he immediately stood up and opened the furnace cover. He saw a vermilion pill with elixir patterns and the dregs from the elixir refining process lying in the elixir furnace. Because the steps of the foundation building elixir were complicated, even with the Hang Meng analysis data, he did not dare to be careless. So he only used one portion of medicinal materials at a time, and only one pill was produced in one furnace. Ronan formed a wizard's hand and took out the pill. Foundation building pill. 10% for beginners. At this time, his skill in refining foundation building pills was only at the entry level, and the quality of the foundation building pills he refined was slightly lower. Therefore, he did not plan to take this foundation building pill. I will sell this foundation building pill in the future. He planned to refine the foundation building pill to perfection, and then take the foundation building pill with the best medicinal effect. After putting the foundation building pill into a medicine bottle and putting it away, Ronan released his spiritual sense and scanned outside. He immediately knew that it was dark outside at night. The 3 maids were still standing in one place waiting for him. Ronan also felt hungry, so he walked out of the pill room. Young master is out. The maids saw Ronan and came forward to serve him. Young master has been in seclusion for a long time. He must be hungry. The maids led Ronan to the dining hall, and Ronan went to the table to eat. Ronan thought that with these maids cooking for him, he saved himself the time of going out to find food. Although, he guessed that the Song family arranged these 3 maids for him with the intention of monitoring him. These days, his spiritual sense also felt that there were many cultivators outside, squatting near his mansion. It seems that the Song family wants to control me, Ronan thought. But as long as I cultivate to the foundation building stage, I'm afraid that the Song family will not be able to control me. He had heard that in general, the cultivators in the family of the immortal cultivation family in the mansion area are all cultivators in the early stage of foundation building. If the cultivator reaches the middle stage of foundation building, without exception, they will accept the invitation of the sect. Because after reaching the middle stage of foundation building, the resources given by the sect are incomparable, even if the whole immortal cultivation family is devoted. Moreover, being in the sect, you can also take care of the descendants of the family. These days, he has learned from the 3 maids that the Song family has only one foundation building, and he is the uncle of the current head of the family, Song Yangshan. And the Song family and a foundation building real person of the Huanxin sect are only distant relatives. If something happened to the Song family, this foundation building master might not necessarily be willing to help. After dinner, Ronan bathed and changed clothes with the help of the maid. Then, he entered the room. There were also prohibition talismans in the room, and the cultivators in the key refining period could not use their spiritual sense to perceive the things in the room. Ronan's heart moved, and he traveled back to the wizard world. The next moment, his figure flashed in the botanical garden. Then, he walked to the laboratory and first prepared the growth-promoting potion wood essence water. After watering the spiritual plants, he sat cross-legged under the lush natal longevity tree. With a move in his heart, the trunk and branches of the natal longevity tree began to emit a faint golden light. The golden light shone on his body, and he immediately felt a force generated in his body. Then, he took out a porcelain bottle, pulled out the cork, and poured 3 Zuanian pills into his mouth. Sitting cross-legged under the natal longevity tree, he began to practice the ancient wood longevity skill. The energy particles around him gathered towards him. Under the effect of the technique, they turned into mana and flowed into Danshan. Chapter 125, Replacing the Magic Plant and Returning to the Past. The next morning, Ronan traveled to the immortal realm of Huanxin sect again. After leaving the room, the maids who were waiting in the distance came forward to help him wash and dress. After washing and having breakfast, he entered the alchemy room to refine the foundation building pill. This time, he spent almost a day refining. However, compared with yesterday, it took a little shorter. As yesterday, when he went out, the 3 maids served him dinner again. During the meal, Ronan glanced at the 3 maids calmly, and then retracted his gaze. He stayed in the alchemy room for the past 2 days, and was watched by the 3 maids. If someone from the Song family asked the 3 maids about him, they would guess that he was studying how to refine the foundation building pill these 2 days. I need a whole day to refine the foundation building pill. If I spend several days refining the foundation building pill, the people of the Song family will know I can refine the Zuanian pill that the Song family needs in just 1 day. During these 10 days, I spent most of my time refining the foundation building pill, and very little time refining the Zuanian pill. The Song family will find out that I deliberately concealed the alchemy skills of the Zuanian pill. It seems that I have to take the materials of the foundation building pill to the wizard world and refine the foundation building pill at night. After thinking about it for a while, Ronan collected his mind and continued to eat. The next day, Ronan did not refine the foundation building pill in the alchemy room. After entering the alchemy room, he locked the door and traveled back to the wizard world to practice. At noon and evening mealtime, he walked out of the alchemy room. The medicinal materials for the foundation building pill were put into the storage wizard device and hidden in his clothes. At night, he entered the room. When the three maids thought he was going to rest or practice, he traveled back to the bungalow in the city of Cakeson. In the laboratory, he started to refine the pill. In the next few days, Ronan only refined the foundation building pill once in the alchemy room of the Zeuxan world. In a blink of an eye, it was a 10-day deadline again, and this time it was Song Liang who came again. Ronan handed over the Zuaniuan pill and the dregs as usual. Song Liang waved his hand and unloaded boxes of new medicinal materials from the carriage. Then, with another wave of his hand, the empty medicine boxes that Ronan had taken out in advance suddenly rose up and piled on the carriage one by one. Ronan's spiritual sense swept towards the new medicine boxes and sensed that there were no medicinal materials for the foundation building pill in them, and he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Song Liang said to Ronan, "Master Luo, have you studied how to refine the foundation building pill these days?" Ronan listened and replied, "Of course, since there is a pill recipe for the foundation building pill, how can I resist refining it? I wonder what the result will be." Song Liang's eyes lit up, and his face showed expectation. All failed. Ronan sighed. The expectation on Song Liang's face disappeared instantly, but soon, he smiled and said, "Master Luo, don't be anxious, take your time." After that, he said goodbye to Ronan. After a few days, Ronan used up all the medicinal materials for the foundation building pills given by the Song family. There were a total of 10 low-grade foundation building pills in his storage wizard device. Without medicinal materials to practice, Ronan planned to find alternative medicinal materials for the foundation building pill recipe in the wizard world. He used Hang Meng to record a lot of knowledge about magic plants and monsters in the library of the Kingdom Wizard Academy and at Abin's place. So, according to the medicinal properties of the 22 main and auxiliary medicines of the foundation building pill, he looked for substitutes in the magic plants and monster materials in the wizard world. Soon, he found 2 to 3 substitutes for each of the 22 main medicines. Then, he screened the difficulty of obtaining the substitutes. 22 substitute magic plants and monster materials were determined. Finally, the ways to obtain these 22 substitute medicinal materials were classified. Some of the substitutes were available around Triumph City, so he could collect them himself. The other part was not available around Triumph City, so he had to go to the black market to buy it. But now, there is a problem. He doesn't have many Valent gold coins. In the past, he could exchange the spirit stones in his hand for gold, then exchange the gold for Valent gold coins. But now he is under the surveillance of the Song family. Moreover, after he got the recipe of the foundation building pill, the Song family will be more nervous about his whereabouts. His action of exchanging spirit stones for gold will definitely be known to the Song family. Exchanging spirit stones for gold for no reason, and not using them will definitely arouse suspicion. The place where gold is used is the secular world. If he uses the excuse of going to the secular world, the Song family will be afraid that he will leak the recipe of the foundation building pill and will definitely send someone to follow him. In this way, it will be difficult for him to travel back to the wizard world. I can only go back to my old job and make potions and sell them. Thinking of this, Ronan left the bungalow and went to the lower city to find Paul. He thought to himself that he hadn't seen Paul for a while, and he didn't know how this guy was doing, and whether he had been promoted to a 3rd level wizard apprentice. After going to the lower city, before he even reached Paul's bungalow, he used his spiritual sense to scan, and found out that Paul was not at home, probably in the academy. So Ronan went out of the city, intending to collect medicinal herbs, and come back in the evening. In the evening, Ronan returned to Triumph City, and when he approached Paul's bungalow, he used his spiritual sense to scan, and still found that no one was in the house. Then, He went to the middle city and went to the wild beer bar, but still did not see Paul. Where did this guy go? Ronan muttered in his heart and returned to the bungalow. With a thought in his mind, he traveled back to the alchemy room of the Huans and Sex Fairyland, left the alchemy room, and had a meal with the maid service. The next morning, Ronan went to the lower city again and found that Paul was still not at home. So Ronan had to go collect medicinal herbs first. He thought that if he couldn't find Paul again, he would have to make potions himself and sell them in Diagon Alley. Of course, the quantity and speed of selling by himself would certainly not be as good as Paul's. After all, Paul has been in the underground market of Triumph City for a long time and has a lot of customers. Giving him the magic potion will enable him to ship it quickly and safely. Outside Triumph City, in the Gulp Magic Forest, Ronan drank the transformation potion and turned into a brown-haired man in his 20s. He cast the magnetic torrent and released an anti-geomagnetic force, flying through the forest. While flying, he searched for the medicinal materials he was looking for. At the same time, he also searched for whether there were any second-level fire magic beasts. Because the essence of the main medicine monster needed for the foundation building pill is the essence of a second-level fire monster. He felt that the essence of a second-level fire monster should be a substitute. As usual, after he went a little deeper into the magic forest, his spiritual sense sensed that there were several magic beast hunting teams inside. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. In a 4-man magic beast team, he sensed an acquaintance, Paul. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.